Stacy, if you can, go ahead and hit the recording. Yep,
Yep,
thank you.
it's all set.
Okay, thanks. So this is going to be recorded, so it will be available to you. We'll also have all of the PowerPoints available to you as well. So we'll post those up. We finished some of them. Well, I finished mine last night. So it's going to get posted today. So you'll have access to all of those. In general, welcome. If you're a new DAC, we appreciate you being here. Our job is to support you the best we can. If you're an experienced DAC, welcome. If you get bored, don't feel bad about dropping off or falling asleep. We don't care either way. We appreciate you being here as well. So a couple of the objectives today, we stay pretty high level in this, right? So we try to give you an overview of everything, give you some important context for the work we do and why we do it, offer a broad overview of the supports and the things that we do to try to support schools. We're not just about a summative test. We try to do other things to support you and the district as well. So we'll go over some of those things. We're going to take a look at what DACs do in general and what those responsibilities are. And a big part of today is about showing you resources. Where is the information and who do you ask if you have questions? In general, this is probably the biggest thing that I can say. If you take one thing away from today, it is, if you have a question, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to send an email. Don't be afraid to call. We are here to help support you. There is no benefit for you to spend hours looking for an answer for something when you can send us an email or call us, because we're here to do that. We know that you have a lot of other responsibilities. DAC is District Assessment Contact is a really unique position or job. But oftentimes it's not your only job. Actually, most of the time it's not your only job. I myself was a teacher level DAC. I taught high school English and had one period of day where I did the DAC duties. I then became a curriculum director and continue to have the DAC duties. We have superintendents, we have principals, we have counselors, we have teachers. We have people that are assessment directors or the directors of research, evaluation and assessment. There are all kinds of different DACs out there. For all the different kinds of DACs, we have all kinds of different districts. And so your needs and what you're doing obviously changes throughout the day. My wife is an elementary principal. I know all about that job. I know that you guys are busy all the time and you never get time to actually do what you think you're going to do. And that's, part of what it is. So don't feel like you're bothering us. Don't feel like you're burdening us. That's our job, is to answer questions and to be here for you, to support you so you can do the other jobs that are very important for teachers and for students, and to support them, right? And so please don't hesitate to ask. That being said, we do expect you to read all the emails, right? And we expect you to go over the materials. But if you need help finding things, if something's not clear, ask. Always ask. So we're going to get into, well, let me go through this here for. So really, most of us at the department and within our ranks in the assessment office as well are educators, or really want to support educators, right? And so we're really trying to do our best and what we can to serve students, educators, and districts in the state of Nebraska. We might not always have a decision or information that you like, but we're trying to do the things that we're supposed to do, and we try to keep that at the forefront of our minds. So I say this often, because when I tell people I work in the district or the statewide assessment office, they often look at me like, what does that mean, right? And so we really try to take the laws and policies to be that whether that's federal or state, to be the most beneficial and the least disruptive as possible. That doesn't mean it's not going to be disruptive or it's always going to be super beneficial, but we're trying to make them the most beneficial and the least disruptive as possible. And so we try over and over again to try to make that happen. try to offer resources and supports for districts to maintain a balanced assessment system. So we're not in a position to mandate a balanced assessment system or to dictate what your assessment system looks like, other than those that are governed by law. But we try to provide you additional support so that you can create a balanced assessment system that benefits your school. Not every test does in some ways. Some we're not designed to do that, but we're always thinking about it and always trying to improve those. And then also fulfill the mission and vision of the State Board of Education and the Department of Education. We're trying to make sure that we're helping everybody and helping students from all across the state learn, earn, and live in our great state that we have. Just kind of take you through these as we're trying to make decisions, right? As we have to make decisions for all kinds of questions. What is best for all students? We try to keep that in the forefront of our mind. Fairness and equity for students and educators and districts, right? So before I got to the department, I didn't think of test security as being an equity issue, but it absolutely is, right? So if one school gets to do something different on the standardized statewide assessment that benefits their kids and allows them to do better, that's not an equitable test in a lot of ways. And so we try to make sure we're standardized, we're making those good decisions. We're also trying to make sure we have a high technical quality for our assessments. We want to make sure it's reliable, valid, and that meets all the specifications. We have to go through a peer review, which is much like school improvement with the federal government in order to continually improve our assessments. And that's something they look at very closely, is the technical quality. And so we're always trying to make sure that we improve that as we go. And then we're also trying to make sure we stay on the right side of the federal and state statute and guidance, right? So there's a lot of what we do that is mandated by law, either by federal or state. We try to maintain and be on the right side of that whenever possible, and make sure that everything is approved and that type of stuff. So those are the types of things that we think about when we're making decisions. We try to keep students at the front of that all the time. You might not always agree with us, like I said, but we are trying to do that over and over again. This is a quick, a lot of people don't, I get into this a little bit, but a lot of people don't understand a little bit about summative assessment. So in the law that created the statewide assessment system, these are the purposes that were outlined by law. When I have a little more time, I ask people to look through this and tell me what they see and what they don't see. Students aren't mentioned a whole lot in here. Teachers aren't mentioned a whole lot. Growth isn't mentioned a whole lot in here. When the state senators, the unicameral, passed the law, they were mostly thinking about accountability and comparing schools to other schools. We're trying to change that dynamic. We're trying to actually maintain this with what we do, but we're actually trying to make it more useful to teachers, more useful to students and parents, and try to focus more on growth instead of just status. But we're also operating within the law and trying to make sure we maintain those things as well. So the student achievement and growth tenet, so it used to be called the assessment tenet in the AQuest system. We changed that because we didn't think that it was really about assessment. It was about student achievement and students growing. And it's all about supporting a balanced assessment system. And so that's really, since this was adopted, we've been really trying to focus on this. I would tell you that we were actually trying to think about this and focus on this even before this tenet was in place. But we have even additional support doing that now. So we try to maintain the supports for you to maintain a balanced assessment system, because it's important that we think about all types of assessment. Okay, so here is, so there's going to be some links, and I'm going to show you where these are to the statewide contact list. So it has, that's weird, it didn't show up. Okay, we'll go look at that in a little bit, but this is the page that has all our contact information. And so it has everybody that works in the statewide assessment office, including all of our vendors and the customer service numbers as well. It's a good page to bookmark. And we're going to actually go to the web page and show you some of that information. So I'm going to go through some of our staff and some staff that's actually not inside the statewide assessment office, kind of give you an overview of the types of things that we can answer questions on. At this point in time, I'd like you to kind of sound off in the chat. Tell us who you are, what school you're from, and what your day job is, right? So are you the elementary principal? Are you the counselor? So if you let us know who you are, that way we can start putting names and schools together so we can figure out who you are and how we can help you as we go forward. I'm going to continue to talk about our staff and who we are. Like I said, I'm the director of statewide assessment. I can answer just about any question, hopefully, but I often send them off to other people if they can answer them better than I can, because I have a lot of great staff and they specialize in a lot of areas. And so policy level, using your results, security breaches, if you can avoid calling me about that one, that'd be great, because I don't like talking about security breaches either. But I'm the one you reach out to if you have questions about that. I can also answer a lot of accessibility questions about accessibility for students with IEPs and EL students. So those are kind of the levels that I kind of specialize in, although I can answer a lot of other questions as well. Dr. Trudy Clark is our Assistant Director of Statewide Assessment. She just waved there to you. She also can answer a lot of policy levels, results used, and accessibility questions. Once again, she can answer a lot of other questions as well. Trudy, she just finished her first year with us. Trudy was a superintendent level DAC at Bruning Davenport before coming to the State Department with us. So she has a lot of practical experience too. And it's much more recent than the last time I was in a school district was about 8 years ago. And so I start to lose a little bit of that knowledge. But like I said, my wife keeps me grounded because she's an elementary principal and she reminds me of how it is to be in that situation every day. So, which is good for me. Maggie Sis is, I forget your full title because you're the program manager for NSCAS. But she is our data person. She answers data questions, data corrections, data. If you have a data question, Maggie's probably the first person that you want to contact with those types of questions. Iris Owens. Iris, we actually have a couple unique situations within our staff. Iris is actually an ACT employee. She's on the ground with us here in the state, and but she helps us manage ACT, and so she's the I forget what their full title is too. That sounds really bad, but hers just changed, trust me. But she's the on-site liaison for ACT. If you have an ACT question, you want to go to Iris first. Iris knows most of the answers. If not, she knows people that can find them for you. The AOP, so the ACT online prep and pre-ACT, those are all things that Iris can help you with. She's the first person I would reach out to with those questions. Rhonda True. Rhonda is our skills grant coordinator and doing NAEP for us right now. Rhonda, the skills grant is a science grant that we have, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about that later. NAEP is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. You might get tapped to do that assessment, and she'll give you some information about that as well. Allie Martinez Wilkinson. Allie's one of those unique people as well. Actually, we're all unique, but you know, Allie is actually an NWA employee, and Allie's on the ground with us here in Nebraska. She helps us with the Certified Facilitator program, which is all about professional learning. We'll talk about that a little bit later. She can also answer general NWA questions fairly well because of her previous position. She worked with the Omaha Public Schools and was a certified facilitator herself, so she has a lot of practical experience as well. Tyrena Webster, we have 2 office associates. Tyrena Webster is the first of those. Tyrena deals a lot with contracts and then websites and timelines. And then Stacy Weber, she focuses on events and logistics. That being said, just about all of our people can answer some basic or high-level questions and then send you to the right people. One thing that I'll mention about this is that we are all still working from home, if you can't tell by our video feeds. We have been out of the office since March, and we're not planning on going back anytime soon. The commissioner, most of our work is able to be done remotely, and so the commissioner has graciously allowed us to try to keep our own family safe, but also increase the social distancing at the workplace as well, at the state office building in downtown Lincoln. One thing that I'll say in general is, for most of us, the easiest way to get a hold of us is going to be through email right now. We do have some phones being forwarded, and we get voice messages on our email. So those work as well. In general, we have a great staff, and I really appreciate everything they do and all the work that they do. So one thing I'll show you once again about vendor customer service and where to get those numbers, the customer service phone numbers. In general, if you have technology questions or how to hook up specific software, those types of things, some of us might be able to answer those questions, but those are really technology questions that should be directed to IT people in the customer service space. They can answer those questions a lot better and troubleshoot a lot better than we can. We're really not highly versed in those technical aspects. Some of us had to do that work ourselves in the district for any number of years, but that also changes. So those are oftentimes the best people to call for technology questions. We also have a couple other people that work with our office that are very important to the work we do and are great to work with as well. Sharon Heater is our special education liaison to assessment. Sharon can answer just about any question about the NSCAS alternate. And then she also specializes in questions about accessibility for students with IEPs for both the general and the alternate. She does a lot of work with us on a regular basis around a lot of aspects where special education and assessment overlap. Allison Olson is also somebody we work with a lot. Allison takes care of a lot of the Alpha 21, as you can see with her title. She works with Title III, and then the Alpha 21 with the English language proficiency test. She can answer accessibility questions once again for EL students, and then specializes in Alpha 21. If you have an Alpha 21 question, you weren't going to want to go to Allison first, because she has more information about that and specializes in that. Once again, somebody that is key to making all of this work well. Excuse me. Okay, Lane Carr is the Director of Accountability in AQuest. Once again, Trudy and I might be able to answer some questions about accountability, but really things get turned over to Lane. Once we get results back, he is the one that is directing and running the accountability system. We can often answer questions, but he is going to have better information and probably be able to answer you quicker than Trudy or I could on these accountability things. So accountability, AQuest, schools, and district classification. The evidence-based analysis, or EBA, as well. Those are types of questions that should go to Lane, and he'll be able to help you answer those questions. He's really great. He can sit down and go over just about any aspect of that system if you have questions about it. Okay, so this is the one that I thought we were going to do. So this is for general inquiries. If you don't know who to ask, this is a phone number and our email, and you can send it to that, and that'll get doled out. Tyrina or Stacy will answer that email or forward it to the person that it needs to go to. Same with the phone call. So if you don't know who to call and you just want to talk to somebody, if you call that number or send an email to that address, we'll get you sent to the best person to answer that question. I'm gonna change this up a little bit. At this point in time, we went over the statewide assessment website. We're gonna come back to that later on in the presentation. So if I don't do that, remind me, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what you can find on those specific pages that are linked to the statewide assessment website. There is a lot of information there. If you've spent any time there at all, you can get lost pretty easily. But if you know what you're looking for, it is a source of a lot of information for you about all types of assessment issues. So communication, we'll talk a little bit about the DAC. Like I said before, the DAC position is a little bit unique. Oftentimes the person isn't called a DAC, they have some other title. You are the only DAC for your district. We only have one per district. We're only going to have one per district. They learned in the early days of this, if you had multiple people, what happens was those multiple people thought the other person was doing it, and that didn't always happen. So we communicate with one person. But we encourage every district to have a plan about how you're going to communicate within your district. So in some places, the DAC will take our DAC emails, for instance, and send it to everyone else on the leadership team. That might be all the principals. That might be whoever you consider part of your leadership team. In some cases, that the DAC will take it and say, okay, the elementary principals need this information, the high school principals need this information, and they'll dole it out that way. Or they might say, you know, nobody needs this information right now because it's not important and it can wait till later, right? So in general, what I would say is that we encourage, our encouragement is that you figure out what works best for you and your district, right? So what is the best way to hand that information out? There's lots of cases where it works for a district. As you can imagine, Omaha's method for sending out information is different than Alliance's or Harvard's or whoever the case may be. Every district is unique, and figuring out the best way to communicate with others is important. That being said, you'd want to have something in mind. You don't want to set on some things that other people need for a long time. For instance, if you're an elementary principal and we send information about ACT, but somebody else runs that ACT, whether it's a counselor or the high school principal, make sure they get that information as soon as possible. So we send out emails. We call them DAC updates. If it says DAC update, we have chosen to send you an email at this point in time, and it's usually pretty important. We try really hard not to send out too much information or emails too often because we want when they show up in your inbox, we want you to pay attention to them, right? That being said, sometimes we send out reminders and those types of things. It's worth at least a glance over to see if there's anything that you need to do immediately, or if you need to ask somebody else to ask to do immediately. During different times of year, those come more frequently. Sometimes we can go a month without having a DAC update, and sometimes when we're close to assessment time, you might get 2 or 3 in a week, right? So it really depends on the situation and the time period of the time of year. Biweekly, NWA puts together a biweekly partner email for us. NWA has the biggest part of our contracts and our biggest vendor support. They help us with map growth and other things. And so they put together a biweekly, every 2 weeks, obviously that's biweekly, you know that, partner emails. And those emails, we've tried to make those new information whenever possible, but they also have reminders in them. Once again, that's worth a good look over when it comes through, just for your own sake, to see if there's anything you need to be reminded of. Vendor emails, we have a list, and we'll get this out to you, of who to expect things from. So you're going to get emails from specific people within NWA, potentially from ACT's automated system. Those happen occasionally, and it varies from vendor to vendor. So ACT, because it's a national product, off-the-shelf product that we purchase, they have more emails that cover things that we don't cover because of the way that contract works with them. So If you're in charge of the ACT or if you're the DAC, you get a lot of those emails. If you're a DAC and you have somebody else running that ACT test, a school level person that's running that test, you're going to get the same emails they do. You might not have to worry about them as much, but those do come through on a regular basis. And those are the main ways we communicate. Most of it is through email. We do some specific email reminders or phone calls if we have to, if we're not getting information from you. We don't like to do that. We'd like to take care of it the other way, but in general, those are the ways you can expect us to communicate. Okay, so we're going to talk about NSCAS Summative a little bit. One thing that I'll say about NSCAS, right, so the Nebraska Student-Centered Assessment System, is we consider NSCAS the whole system, the whole thing. And so everything we do is kind of under this NSCAS umbrella. So NSCAS Summative is one test. We have NSCAS Interim, NSCAS Professional Learning, really. And so those are different aspects of the program that we try to put out there and the supports we try to put out there. So these are our vendors. So NSCAS General, so that's for the general assessment in grades 3 through 8, English, language arts, math, and science. And science is just grades 5 and 8. Our vendor partner for that is NWEA. The alternate, NSCAS alternate, I should have put NSCAS in front of that. I don't know why that's not there. NSCAS alternate, our partner for that is DRC. We'll get into the alternate again, but alternate is only about 1% of our students. Some of our districts have no alternate students, but this is the most significant, the students with the most significant cognitive disabilities in our state. And so they get a different test, an alternate test, and we'll talk about that as we move forward. Then NSCAS ACT obviously is our vendor partner is ACT there. These are the grades that we test at on a regular basis by law, and what's been decided about science for what grades by the State Board of Education, what grades we test in science. You'll notice that red there, it says high school. So we test once at high school for ELA, for math, and for science. We use the college entrance exam, ACT, for that. One thing that I'll point out is that at high school students, and I can't stress this enough, we actually test students in the 3rd year cohort. So when a student enters 9th grade, 3 years later, after a full year, 2 years, 3 years, right? So their 3rd year of high school, that's when we expect students to test. It's not based on what grade a student is in, because grades are based on credits. It's actually their 3rd year of high school. And so you might have a senior that has extra credits for whatever reason, but they might be in their 3rd year of high school, and so they would test that year. You might have a student that has less credits, right, and might be classified as a sophomore or even a freshman if they've had a lot of trouble in their high school careers, and they would be expected to test in their 3rd year of high school, in that 3rd year of cohort. And so really it's important to note that it's not just juniors that test at the high school level. It's the 3rd year cohorts that test. And that's super important because oftentimes people will test students that aren't supposed to be tested, or even worse, they'll test students that should have been. They won't test a student that's supposed to be tested. If you don't test the students you're supposed to, that's a 0 score, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it. We send lots of lists out there. We try to help you find all of those kids and understand those kids. We have lots of processes for that, but it is probably one of the biggest areas of confusion and questions that we have on a regular basis. So I can't stress that enough. If this is probably the second thing. The first thing was to call us or ask us if you have questions. The second thing is we don't test juniors, we test 3rd year cohort students. And so paying attention to that is really important as you go forward. So talk a little bit about NSCAS. Like I said, the Student-Centered Assessment System is really a system of supports for district use and creating a balanced assessment system. Assessments are powerful tools that can be used for improvement to inform instruction and curriculum. That being said, different assessments have different purposes, right? And so you're going to use the results of different assessments for different reasons. And one assessment is not going to be the be-all, end-all of what you do. In many ways, the summative assessment system, the summative test, isn't the most important test you'll give, or this most important assessment you'll give, because it gives limited information. It currently gives limited information back to you about your curriculum, your instructional decisions, those types of things. Formative, interim, benchmark types of assessments go much further in giving us good information for those purposes. So we have, of course, the summative NSCAS, interim map growth, right? So sometimes we call map growth NSCAS interim, map growth, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. In the formative space, we previously had done support in TestWiz. We're currently reviewing additional supports. We hope to have information on that soon. We've been saying that for a while now, but we really are getting close. And then professional learning. We have a whole series of professional learning that can be offered through our certified facilitator program, and we'll talk more about that as we move forward as well. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about NSCAS Summative. We're doing pretty good. I'm way ahead of schedule, so that's good. Vendor partner is NWA. Like I said, we're actually going into our 4th year with NWA, and they are a great partner. Actually, all our vendors are great partners. Test management and results are available through the Comprehensive Assessment Platform, CAP. So when I actually first arrived at the department, we had one assessment vendor and everything was run through that one assessment vendor. Things have become much harder since we have 3 assessment vendors, because you have to know which system you're talking about, and because they all have different systems, unfortunately. But there's some advantages to all of that as well, so I won't tell you it's all bad. So CAP, or the Comprehensive Assessment Platform, is a password-protected user rights system. If you have filled out the paperwork to become the DAC, and we know that, you should already have access to that system. It's the same platform as Map Growth, which is a good thing. NDE provides NWA with rosters in January every year. And so some of that might change in the future, but it's based on grade level. So what grade students are in grades 3 through 8, that is based on grade level, not the 3rd year cohort, which the high school test is. FTE, right? So full-time equivalency. So this is an important one that a lot of people don't know unless they're kind of ingrained in this work. If you have a part-time student, right? So if you provide services to a student, for instance, say the student goes to a local parochial school and they go there most of the time, but they come to you for band and for PE. You actually look at their FTE, the full-time equivalency, to see if they test. So any student that is at 51% of their day or more with you is going to be expected to test. So a homeschool student, if they spend 40% of their day with you, then they would not test. If they spend 51 or more % of the time with you, you are expected to test that student. And so we base that on the FTE. That is a common error in a lot of people's student information systems, that the students aren't in there correctly for FTE. It's really important that if you have a part-time student, for whatever reason, that their FTE is correct in there, because we use that number to say who we expect to test. Also, alternate assessment flag is really important here as well. So there is a place in your system, right, for alternate assessment flag. SPSS, no, that's not right. Sharon, what's the name of it? Sharon with me.
The name of what?
Where the alternate assessment flag is.
Insight. Oh, that's on their advisor.
Right. So it's in advisor, but it's also in the special education.
in the
Yeah,
SPED record within the SPED section of their individual student record in Advisor.
Right, thank you. So your student information system will have that turned on or off. If it's off, those students go on the general side. If it's on, those students go to the alternate side. We try to keep those students separate because it's two separate systems. So it's really important that students that qualify for the alternate assessment and that you're using those guidelines that we put out there. We'll talk more about alternate here in a little bit. But we use that to determine which students get sent to which vendor. So that's important information. So those all are information that we use out of Advisor to determine that. So probably something important that Maggie wants me to tell you is that it's really important that your student information system is up to date, because if it's not up to date, then we start to get errors when we start to provide rosters to vendors. So keeping that your student information system, whether you use PowerSchool or something else, is really important. So students for the general summative access testing through a lockdown browser. That's the same browser that allows access to math growth. It's going to be installed or distributed to each device. You can get more information about that. Hopefully you're tech person. Hopefully you're not the tech person as well as the DAC, but if you are, then hopefully you know something about this anyway. But because each of these assessment systems have different specifications, and you have to make sure the software is correctly installed on whatever devices you use for testing. Test dates for spring 21, general and alternate. Those are the testing windows. You'll notice a couple of things. This is a 7-week window in total. The primary window goes from March 22nd to April 30th, and then we have a makeup week. That makeup week, you could, first of all, you can make up anytime earlier than you want to than that. What shouldn't happen is you shouldn't be scheduling your assessments for the first time in that last week. So you shouldn't be scheduled the third graders for the first time to test ELA on May 4th this year. That would be bad, because if you don't get those assessments done, you get 0 scores for them and those types of things. And that's not good all the way around for reporting or for accountability. So all tests should be originally scheduled in the primary window. That last week is specifically used for makeup window, whether that's a student because they were sick or something happened. One thing that I'll mention in general is we keep a pretty good eye on the state and what's happening. Obviously last year, we didn't have any testing at all because of the pandemic. The year before that, we had impacts because of flooding. We monitor those things and try to make the best decisions we can as we deal with them. And we'll as things change, we'll let you know. One thing that I'll mention, and I mentioned the other day at Administrator Days, is this is our plan A. We'll let you know what plan B, C, D, E, and F is when we have things that we can tell you. And so this is I should have probably mentioned this earlier. So we are trying to stay at a high level with this presentation. There are some differences for this year, obviously, than a normal year. You all know that. I don't need to tell you that this is not a normal year. You're up to your eyeballs in abnormality right now, I'm sure, trying to deal with all of the different things that your district is dealing with. If you have questions about those in particular, please let us know as well. I was going to delete this slide, but I'll just give you a quick overview of this. Some of this is likely to change this year because of some of the testing. In general, what I'll tell you is don't worry about this because I don't have the specific dates yet. When we get specific dates, we'll send those out to you so you can put them on your calendar and know they're coming. A little bit of information here about general and alternate achievement levels. So when a student takes a summative test, they are put into, or their score puts them into one of 3 categories: developing, on track, and college and career ready benchmark. Oftentimes people only associate that name with a student or with the student's performance on the assessment. It's really important to us that you also think about the definition, right? So no third grader is college and career ready. right? There's no student, I shouldn't say there's no student. We might have a Doogie Howser out there someplace. That's a throwback to the 80s for those of you that are old enough to know it. Or maybe that was 90s, I don't know. Anyway, in general, students are not college and career ready, but they might be at a college and career ready benchmark, right? So they might be progressing on that level. On track, there's nothing wrong with on track. There's nothing wrong with being on track. On track is basically meets. College and career ready benchmark is a higher level as far as that goes. It's kind of the old exceeds. So those are the definitions for those achievement levels. So NSCAS General, ELA, and Math, talk about a little bit about those. Those are aligned to the Nebraska College and Career Ready standards. They include multiple choice and technology enhanced items. It is computer adaptive test. So computer adaptive means that it gets easier or harder for a student based on their previous performance. So the student's taking the test. This is much like Math Growth. If they're getting the questions right, the test progressively gets harder. If they're getting questions wrong, it gets easier. ELA and Math for the NSCAS General stays at grade level though. So if you have a fourth grader testing in Math, they're only ever going to see fourth grade items. They're not going to see third grade or second grade items. There's also a paper accommodated form. The reasons to use paper are very limited now. We have less than 200 students statewide that use a paper form, and that number is decreasing all the time. There are some good reasons to use, actually they're all good reasons to use paper accommodated form. Our students with that have vision disabilities and need a large print or braille booklet might test paper. Some of our EL students that need a translation might test paper. But in general, most of our students test online because they get that adaptive test if they are online. If they're on paper, they don't get that adaptive test, and that is better for students in general. It is built as an untimed single session, but we often encourage it to be divided into multiple sessions.
Jeremy, when you say technology enhanced,
yes.
Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I can. Let me back up. So technology enhanced is, those cover a large range of items, right? So it might be drag and drop. It might be a question where you have to fill in the blank. It might be, there's a whole series of technology enhanced that go beyond multiple choice. And really, where that name come from, that technology enhanced come from, is because when we started testing programs all across the country, we were really limited to multiple choice only. From that time forward, now we've been able to offer a lot of different item types that allow students to interact differently with the content. One thing that I'll say about that is that technology enhanced, we have examples of all of those items, of all the types of items that a student might encounter in the item type samplers. And in and those item type samplers are really to expose students to all those different item types. And so we used to call them practice tests, but they really weren't practice tests in that way. They were really to expose students to those item types, to make sure they've had an experience with those item types and know how to use them. So those are technology item samplers, and there's paper versions for students that use paper as well. Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so for general and alternate science, we talked about them at the same time this year. So census testing for grades 5 and 8, and for high school, it includes alternate as well. Alternate includes high school as well. Census field testing means we expect all students to test. And when we do field testing, what we're really doing is testing items, not students. So we were supposed to do this last year. We didn't because of the pandemic. And so we're moving it to this year. For general, for grades 5 and 8, and for alternate 5, 8, and 11, we're really testing items. We're testing those items to make sure they work correctly, that they were going to be able to build a high quality assessment. And so that is this year for the field test in 21. All students are expected to test unless we let you know otherwise. Districts do not receive results, and science will not be used in accountability for 2021. Like we said, we're testing the items, not testing students. The test is aligned with the Nebraska's College and Career Ready Science Standards. And so we're expecting an operational test in the spring of 22 now. This is the graphic that we've changed many times. Rhonda kind of did a new updated version. So we're trying to get to the operational in spring of 22. Spring of 21 is now being used as the field test. We have done a lot of work up until this point. And Nebraska educators. One thing that I should probably mention in general is that Nebraska educators have a huge role in all of the work we do on Nebraska Summative. We bring in Nebraska educators to write or review all the items that end up on the NSCAS tests, NSCAS Summative tests. And so in all cases, Nebraska educators from the classroom, from districts, are involved in those items that make it onto the test. That should make you feel good about that test, because we try to make sure it's grounded in what's happening every day in our assessments. But it's also important to know, because we are always looking for new people and new volunteers. One way to have a voice in what we do is to encourage your teachers to apply for those summer opportunities. We do, if a teacher's not on contract, we do pay for those days. It's not the best money in the world, but it's not, I was going to use a metaphor or something there and I lost it. Anyway, it's not pennies either. Let's put it that way. So for the general summative, results are public reported at the school and district level. Those go on the NEP, or the Nebraska Educational Profile. It used to be called the Nebraska report card. And the results feed into the AQuest accountability system. So when Lane and his group do the calculations, obviously summative assessment results are a big part of the calculations for the accountability system. So talk a little bit about NSCAS Interim. So NSCAS Interim is MAP Growth 3 through 8. Before our contract with NWA, like 86% of our districts were using MAP Growth as an assessment. So we now pay for, the State Department pays for MAP Growth 3 through 8 for all schools to use. It's part of the contract. If districts want to, they also have the ability to contract with NWA for additional grades. It's probably important to note for this year, in addition to grades 3 through 8, we are also paying for MAP growth in K through 2 and 9 through 10. This is a one-time only type of thing. We had extra resources from last year because we didn't test, and so we were able to cover the cost of that. If your district normally uses those tests, then you don't have to pay for them this year. You can divert that money to something else. As of right now, the reason why I say it's only is because we don't have those funds available in the future as of right now. So don't count on us paying for those additional grades in other years. But for this year, you could use that money for technology, for other interventions, for whatever purposes that you deem necessary at the district level. If you don't use those grade levels and would like to start, this might be a good year to start looking at that. Just as an example, in 9-10, about 220 of our 244 districts test some 10th graders and some 9th graders is about what the number is. And so that doesn't mean you have to do it or you should do it. What I'll always tell you is you should only, if you don't have to give a test, you should only give that test if you're going to use the results, right? So you shouldn't test and not use results. That's not a good use of anybody's time, but it's something you might want to think about as you move forward. This is optional to districts, right? So we don't mandate that anybody use math growth at any grade level. You're welcome to. Like I said, 86% of our districts were using it before. I think 100% of our districts are using it now. It can be utilized up to 4 times a year. Technically, you can use it in fall, winter, and spring. You can get good growth data over the year for that. And you can actually use it in the summer too. We have very little usage in the summer, but it is available to you to use during a summer administration as well. It is computer adaptive. It goes outside of grade level. So it goes, if you have a 5th grade student and they're getting questions right, they might go up to 6th grade or even higher. And it might go down levels as well based on where students are. And so it really tries to figure out where students, what students know. And then there's a learning continuum. There's lots of resources to be able to inform your instruction. You get near immediate results from that assessment to be able to use. There's more information for teachers, for schools and districts. Rostering, if you're going to use this system, is a district responsibility. The other thing I'll say is there's lots of professional learning around this. If you're ever trying to figure out how to use this information better or how best to use it, there is professional learning around that that can be offered to you. So NSCAS formative and classroom support. So like I said previously, we had supported TestWiz. We're looking at ways that we can expand our support in this space. Yet again, we do offer professional development around formative assessment. There's a whole series of those that could be offered to your district if you're interested in that. We also have, this year particularly, we developed 24 classroom or formative science tasks at both the 5th grade and the 8th grade level. Those are going to be released soon. And we're going to put those out there for teachers all across the state to be able to use. We basically diverted, since we didn't need to write new items this year because we didn't test last year, we had our teachers come in and develop those tasks around, much like our summative tasks, but they're for classroom and for formative use. We will make those available to you as soon as they're ready. And your teachers can use them however they wish in their classroom during the year. And that will help support that transition to those 3-dimensional new science standards and really help prepare students with the skills that they need to also be successful on the state summative test as well. NSCAS professional learning. Allie just came and just turned her video on, I think. There's, wave at him, Allie. So, Allie really takes care of a lot of this, right? This is an extension of our certified facilitator program. There was a certified facilitator program in the state before the statewide contract. What I'll tell you is that when we got the statewide contract with the NWA, or when NWA got the statewide contract with us, that's probably what I should say, we didn't understand how this would have to change, but it did evolve. It's evolved quite a bit over the last couple of years. We now have a whole lot more. So it used to be that NWA provided a product and therefore professional learning around that product. Now we're having ESU professional development staff, district professional development staff, department development staff, and NWA staff all working together to figure out what we need across the state. This is a trainer of trainer models. We have sessions about assessment literacy, using math and NSCAS results, creating quality goals around math growth. Allie, is there anything else you want to say that you think is important here?
Just that be sure to reach out to your certified facilitator. Everyone has someone that they can work with. If you're not sure, contact me. Last year, in the 3rd year of the contract, we provided over 650 trainings across the state. Certified facilitators provided to those teachers. So we have resources and are here to help, wanting to make sure that all educators understand what they need and we can provide that professional learning for you.
Yeah, thanks, Allie. what you should know is that all ESUs have a certified facilitator, and most of our big districts have at least one certified facilitator. So there are certified facilitators for everybody to access. If you don't know who that is in your district or in your ESU region, reach out to us and we'll help you find the right person. And then you can work with them to try to have that professional development. That being said, we know that there's lots of other priorities this year. It's going to be an interesting year for professional development because we're trying to not lose any class time based on what happened at the end of last year and what may be continuing to happen, and we understand that. So we'll talk a little bit here about alternate. I'm about 15 minutes early here, so we'll keep going. Just out of curiosity, is Iris on already? I think I heard her earlier.
I am here.
Okay. Hey, Iris. Iris is coming up next after the break, so stay tuned.
Or leave early.
No, don't leave. Don't tell them to leave.
Sorry.
NSCAS alternate. Yeah, I felt like a DJ right there for a second, and we'll be right back after this commercial break. No, we're not going to take a break. We're going to keep on going. Alternate. So our vendor partner is DRC, Data Recognition Corporation. DRC was our previous vendor for general and alternate. Their test management system and results are available through Insight. See, somebody left, Iris. You can access that there at that site. This is a password protected user system, just like NWA's CAP system. I should have mentioned this before. The DAC is in charge of giving other people access to that system. So if you want others to have access to the system, you would have to add them. You would have to, you can assign them roles and what permissions they have. And so you can give other people access to those systems, whether it's Insight or CAP. One thing that I'll mention is if somebody had previous access, that access rolls over. So if you want to change that access, it's now up to you to do that. If you need help with that, we can definitely help you out or point you in the right direction. There are manuals and those types of things about how to do that. Once again, we provide rosters to DRC in January. It's based on that alternate assessment flag that we talked about earlier. So only students that have alternate assessment flags marked get put into the system. If they don't have that marked and they were supposed to be, you'll have to put them in manually. It's not tough to do, but it is time consuming. It's based on grade levels. Once again, alternate is 3 through 8 and high school, which is third year cohort students if they have significant cognitive disabilities and qualify to take the alternate. And it's based on FTE again, right? So any student that has 51% or more of their time in the public school, in your public school, would be assigned to take the test. Students and proctors access the testing through DRC's Insight Lockdown browser. That needs to be installed on and distributed to devices, limited number. So you don't, nobody has very many students, right? So in general, you're going to have 1% or less of your students that take the alternate. So you don't need this software on a lot of your computers, just the ones that are going to be used by those teachers and those students. Technology's information is available inside Insight. So if you need help finding that technology information, you can let us know, or it's available in Insight. So like I said, this is a test that is intended for the students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. It's typically about 1% or less of the population. In some cases, it goes a little bit over 1%. But as a state, we're supposed to be at 1% by federal guidelines, which is the next bullet. Federal guidelines allow for 1% of students to take the assessment. Every year, we ask districts to predict how many students and what percentage of students they're going to have take the alternate. And if they're going to go over that 1%, they have to provide a justification letter for us. That will come out this fall at some point in time. Sharon usually takes care of that. This year we are likely to have a little bit different process because we didn't have we didn't give last year's test. And so we don't know exactly what your percentage would have been. So the requirements for that are slightly different this year, but those will be detailed in specifically when we send that request out for those forms to be filled out. It's really important that districts use the NDA guidelines for eligibility to determine who qualifies for the alternate summative test as the NSCAS alternate. It's not just by a whim, right? Nobody should be saying, oh, that student belongs on the alternate. There are specific guidelines. Your IEP teams need to use those guidelines when determining who is eligible and who should take the NSCAS alternate. It's really important that that happens. Sharon, do you want to jump in and say anything right here?
Just that we will still have to apply for a 1% waiver this year. And so we're going to need your assistance to make sure you get your letters and your information into us on time. And on the 2 letters, informations that come out, it will be blocked out which sections are not going to be required for you to do this year. So you won't have to fill out a couple sections on those required documents as previously.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. And that's important that you look over those documents and fill them out correctly. It's worth a question to Sharon if you're unsure, because if you get it wrong, she's going to send them back to you and ask you to fill them out. Sometimes DACs fill those out. Sometimes special education directors fill them out. It really kind of depends based on the district and who's in charge of those pieces. But if we don't have it, we reach back out to the DACs usually, correct?
Yes.
So a couple additional information for ELA and math. We actually have extended indicators or extended standards from our general standards. And so that's what the ELA and math test for the alternate is based on. So if you have a teacher teaching students that qualify for the alternate, they should be focused on those extended standards. The science is aligned to the extended science standards. We are doing that field test this year. Like we said, we moved it from last year because we didn't test. It is only multiple choice and only has 3 answer options. It is a 1-to-1 administration. So this test is read aloud by the proctor to each individual student. It can be done either on a computer or a touch-based device like an iPad, or it is paper pencil based on the student needs. In all cases, the proctor enters or records responses unless a student can actually interact with the test. And NDE provides a recorded training for proctors. One thing that I'll say about this in general, if you're not familiar with it, is that it is tough to create this test because this 1% of students has more diverse abilities than the 99% of other students, right? So there's more variance in student skills in this 1% of students than the 99% others. So we have students that are basically non-communicative that have to take this test that struggle or cannot communicate in any discernible way, all the way up to students that are almost in your regular classrooms and have the normal curriculum. And so it's really difficult, and we can only have this one other test besides the general. It's really tough to create one assessment that works for all of those diverse students within the 1% of students. You do not receive materials for this. They must be printed off from the Insight system. And responses must be entered into the computer. So you don't send responses back. You enter those into a computer system. You might have a student that is non-responsive, and you also need to tell us if that student is non-responsive. And so that we know that you attempted to test them. Sharon, before I go on, any other big things that I should mention about alternate?
Just a reminder that they make sure they destroy the materials once they're done with them.
Yep. Yeah, you print those and then you're responsible for destroying them at the end of the test. That is important as well. Thank you.
And please feel free to contact me if you have any questions.
Absolutely, as always, right? Sharon is an excellent resource for alternate, and we appreciate both her and Allison helping us on all of those pieces with EL students as well with Allison. So the dates are the same as the general, right? So the same type of situation. These students might take many days to take a test. In some cases, we see students that take only a couple of questions a day, and then come back the next day to take a couple more questions. And so it really depends greatly upon the student and the student's needs, but the windows are the same for completing alternate as they are for general. The other thing that I'll say is that the achievement levels are the same. Once again, a student that is on the alternate probably is not college and career ready in many cases, but that should be what we're working towards, is getting those students to be college and career ready and hit those college and career ready benchmarks. That being said, it's also with the extended indicators that they're being used. And so it's important to note that as well. So the results are publicly reported just like the general. In most cases, the alternate assessment results are combined with the general assessment results. And then the alternate functions as a subgroup. So you might be able to pull ELA down with a certain grade and be able to see the results for all the alternate students in the state on a particular test on the NEP. The results are fed into the AQuest accountability system. So accessibility in general. So this is kind of we changed topics here. So accessibility, we're really talking about all kinds of features that help students take the test. Every year we produce the NSCAS Summative and Alternate Accessibility Manual. That updated version should be available soon. It includes a short tool, which is a couple of pages long as opposed to the whole manual, that goes over all of the accessibility features that are available. For some students, so for all students, we have universal accessibility features that are available for all students. And then we also have accommodations that are available for students with an IEP and linguistic supports that are available for students with linguistic needs, EL students. In general, your SPED teachers, your SPED director should be reading the entire manual, and that tool should be for reference at a later time. It's really important that SPED teachers have all of that context because they are running those IEPs, and it's really important to have all that context when you're running an IEP and making determinations about whether students need accommodations, whether they should qualify for the alternate or not. One thing that I'll say about NSCAS accessibility is writing rules for all students is impossible. So there are unique students all across our state that we cannot write rules that always apply to them. If you think that a student might be unique in a way and you need to ask a question, the best people to ask would be Sharon for students with IEPs or Allison Olson for EL students. Myself or Trudy can answer a lot of those questions as well. One thing in general is that sometimes if it is a real tough one or a unique situation we haven't encountered, we may need to consult with each other and get back to you to make sure we're being consistent about those. If you have questions, though, please reach out to us and ask those questions. It is not as easy for us to consult as it was previously since we're all working from home. So it might take a little bit more time to get that information to you. Continuing on with accessibility, so accommodations are for students with IEPs. It must be in a student's IEP and used in daily instruction. So a student is not able to use an accommodation if it's not in their IEP and if it's not used on a regular basis. Do not assume that more is better. We have teachers out there that mark everything and try to give students everything as far as accessibility or accommodations. If a student isn't used to using something, it's just as likely to distract them or mess them up as it is to help them. And so it's really important that students get what they need and only what they need. But you're the best people to know that. You know the student, we do not. And so we rely on you to know what accommodations they need and to provide those accommodations for them. Once we release the manual, we do not change it during the year. But you can ask for and submit suggestions for the future. At this point, the manual is pretty stable. There's not a whole lot of changes from year to year. Mostly it's just clarifications and cleaning things up that people have questions about. That being said, that it is possible for something new, some new technology or something to change. So if you have suggestions on how we can change that accessibility manual, please request that and we will take a look at it moving forward. We try not to change it during the year because we don't want things to be moving on you. We want them to be stable during the course of the year and during instruction. We ask you that I should have taken that out. Ignore those 2 dates, please. I missed that one. Those dates aren't correct. So you need to record what accessibility supports are used. It is a subset of the supports in the manual. We use this for research and for other pieces when it's a federal guideline that we try to track who is using the accommodations or the accessibility supports, and that those individuals that are using them need them, or the ones that need them are getting them. And so it's really important that you let us know who had those supports, because we can't always know based on the computer system. Like I said, those are not the right dates. We will let you know what the right dates are. Questions should be directed to myself or Sharon. Trudy can answer a lot of questions. Allison Olson about, like I said, EL supports. We will do a Q&A session again, either in January or February, most likely. We'll let you know when that is. Let you bring anybody onto that session, and it'll be a web-based session, and ask additional questions if you have them about accessibility for the NSCAS. So regional workshop. Every fall we go around the state doing regional workshops. This year, because of COVID, we are only doing a single date. We are not going to be going around the state. That date is October 8th. It is from 9 to noon. This is really when we start to get into some of the details about the year. Typically at administrator days, we give an overview for what's coming up, what people should know. And then in October, we get a lot more details out there because a lot of that is firmed up by then. So that's the date that's planned. Please save the date if you can. It will be recorded if you're not able to attend in person, and we will share that registration information when available. I think we do a really good job in the statewide assessment office of seeking feedback. So sometimes you'll be asked to fill out a survey from our vendors. You'll be asked for different information about your district and what you need. We also have an assessment and accountability advisory. We often refer to that as AAA or the AAA committee. Yes, it's funny, and it sounds kind of funny. That group is made up of educators from around the state. There's about 50 people on that. We have superintendents, principals, teachers, DACs, assessment coordinators, assessment coordinators, curriculum coordinators. We have people from different organizations on that committee. And really, we try to bring in a good cross-section of people. We meet with them twice a year to discuss big things with, and to get information on decisions we have to make. This summer, we've actually had them come in for a couple of short meetings virtually, so we could ask them questions about the upcoming year and give us advice. We think that's a really valuable way that we get feedback about the work we do. We try to always ground that in what districts, the decisions we make and what districts would think and do, but sometimes it's important for us to hear from different size districts and different districts across the state to make sure we're getting good input in the processes and the decisions that we're making. We also have a technical advisory committee. This technical advisory committee is made up of 3 nationally recognized psychometricians or assessment experts, and then a teacher and a Nebraska teacher and a Nebraska administrator. Those 5 individuals make up this technical advisory committee. We take both assessment and accountability questions to them and ask for their guidance and their advice about technical issues, often about calculations, about technical quality of assessments or the accountability system. So they meet usually about twice a year as well to give us advice. Like I said, we do surveys. We also look for emails and calls. One thing I'll say is that if you ever have a suggestion for us, that would be great, because you're the ones out there doing it and experiencing it. And so if you have something or some way to make life easier on yourself and others, please let us know. We always take that feedback and try to incorporate it if possible, or let you know why we wouldn't if we were not able to. That is the end of the slideshow. We still have a little bit of time here before break. What I want to do is go to the Department of Education webpage here. I'll try to answer some of questions if we have unanswered questions here before we take our break at 10:40. We might go to break a little bit early. So this is the Nebraska Department of Education page. If you can't find the assessment page, I'll show you how to get there easily if you're ever searching for it. On the right-hand side, we have some quick links. Statewide assessment is second from the bottom. That doesn't mean we're second from the bottom. We actually have a quick link on the front page, so that makes us pretty important. That was a joke and kind of supposed to be funny, but you know, whatever. I can't get the laughter anyway, so I don't know why I worry about it. Okay, so this is statewide assessment. This is a blog area here where we try to put the newest information for everybody to look at. There's not going to be information there that we don't send to you. All the information that was there was already sent out to DACs. So you don't have to come here every day and look at this. That's not what it's there for. It's to let other people know what's going on. A lot of times the newest information will go on the front page. If you scroll down, so in Administrator Days information is going to go up here as soon as it is ready. There's also some of this needs to be cleaned up as well. Well, that is all about Administrator Days, but we'll put the recordings up there or link to those recordings. You can get to different sections here as well. Let me go down the side of the page over here where all the, so there's assessment dates. If you go there, you're going to find the windows. District assessment contacts. We try to put information specific to district assessment contacts here, including we have some checklists and some other resources that you might need or want. If you have a new DAC that's coming out, going to take your place in the future, there's a place for us to do that. Don't bookmark that, everybody. You want to do this, it's a fun job. You get to hang out with us sometimes. We put out the SAA updates. This is a big document that we put out every year that has a lot of information. This recording will be put here along with the PowerPoints. And who reports what is an important document as well. All that information will be there on that DAC page. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with each one of these. The NSCAS overview kind of gives a lot of information about everything. NSCAS Innovation, I'm going to talk about this really quick because I don't really touch upon it. So last October at our regional workshops, we announced that we are going to move to adaptive through-year model. And that adaptive through-year model is very different than our current assessment model. In short, it is a blending of map growth and NSCAS Summative. So students take multiple tests during the year, and then we determine a summative score from that. It is a much better system, in our opinion, because it gives information back to teachers, students, districts, schools as we go, and then pulls information from those assessments to determine the proficiency of a student. Right now, we don't have an updated timeline. Originally, we were supposed to get to that 3-year model hopefully next year. The COVID pandemic has impacted that. We're hoping to have some announcements about that impact. If you're curious about this, we have several recordings and information here. If you want to know more about that transition, there's a whole series of recordings there. Some of that has changed from last year, but it's still good information to let you know where we're going. Here is information about the summative assessment, the general summative, and then we have pages for ELA, math, and for science. Here's a page for alternate. The alternate has includes links to the guidance that we put out there as far as how to determine who qualifies. So here's a lot of additional documentation, justification, and those types of things. In general, you don't need to worry about those until we tell you to, but there is a lot of good information. One thing that I'll show you, I'll go to the English page here real quick. We include achievement level descriptors, so this helps understand how indicators impact what students know. So if a student is at a developing level, it describes what that student knows. And so for each one of those, that's good information for teachers to have. Table of specifications, this also tells you, this is basically the blueprint of what we test. So it goes into each indicator that we test and tells you approximately how many items are on the test. If you've never seen those are really useful information. ACT, obviously, and ELPA 21, kind of those are pretty self-explanatory. Interim and formative support, so this will describe some of what is available in those interim, the math growth and those types of things. This one is pretty important, assessment vendor partners. So NWA and ACT both have additional websites. NWA posts a lot of our information for us for the NSCAS General and for NSCAS Interim or math growth. DRC, a lot of their information is contained behind this insight, so you have to use a password to get there. And a lot of information is contained on ACT's portal as well. So those are important. That's one that I go to often to get to these others. So we have those there. If you ever want to know more about what that technical advisory committee is doing, that information is there. Technical reports. If you have insomnia, this is where you want to go, right here. These are technical reports. Those are 200, 300-page documents that get into all the technical qualities of our assessments. They're very informative, but they are very technical in nature. So a lot of statistician, psychometrician jargon and language in there. If you're interested in that, by all means, dig in. But most of you'll just go to sleep faster. NAEP, here's information about NAEP and that National Assessment of Educational Progress. Last place I'll show you here is contact us. If you go to statewide assessment, then contact us. There's our general information. And then there's all of us. And then there's our vendors. Irina and Stacy, let's make sure we get links to Sharon and to Allison on here too, please. Let's put them there as well. I'm going to take a look at questions. If you have questions, you want to come off mute and ask a question now, we'll do that. We have coming up, we have ACT, we'll get into ELPA 21 a little bit. Then we have NAEP and science and skills. And then we'll answer some more questions. Is there anything that's kind of unanswered that I need to look at?
Yes, Lisa asked a question about through year, whether there'd be out of grade level questions like the map growth has.
Yeah, Yes, that is the plan right now, is to go outside of grade level in the through year. That is correct. So a student that is struggling could be met where they are, so we get good growth information. Each student will have to have enough on grade level items to be able to determine their proficiency. There's a lot of details in that we haven't worked out yet, and we're continuing to look at as we develop this. The 3-year system is, we're kind of on the forefront of that, and we're doing things that nobody else has done. There's a consortium of districts down in Georgia that are doing some of that work as well. So in some cases, we don't have all the answers yet, but in general, that is the plan, is to be able to go outside of that and then determine on-grade proficiency. Any other questions in there, guys, that I need to answer?
No, I think we handled the others.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions right now before we take a break? Okay, let's do a 10-minute break. Actually, we'll do a 13-minute break. So we'll come back at 10:40. We'll start at 10:40, and Iris, you're going to be up. Okay. So 10-minute break, a little more. We'll start at 10:40. Thank you. give you a 2-minute warning, and then we're going to get started again. 2 minutes.
I'm going to share my screen, so I want somebody to tell me that you see it. Okay, guys?
We will.
Okay.
We can. Looks good.
Iris?
Yes. Okay. Did someone say Iris?
I said I see it.
Oh,
On track.
thank you, Miss Allison.
Okay, let's go, Iris.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate that. Looks like I added another participant, so thank you, Allison, for joining us so I don't look so bad. There's a joke behind that, sorry. Let me move on. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to all of you who are watching the recording as well. Really appreciate you taking the time to hear about the ACT state test. So here we go. This is a lovely picture of the campus at ACT. I share this because this is part of my roots. So in Nebraska had determined that it would be mandatory to test high school students with a college career test, and ACT won that contract. The first test we took was in the spring of 2017. I say that for history because it's kind of fun. I worked at ACT in lots of various locations. Specifically, the most helpful one has been distribution and accommodations. Can you imagine? So I know a little bit about everything about ACT, so that's why it's helpful to call me sometimes first. I might have more knowledge than someone you might get on customer service. However, tech-wise, they're the ones to go to. Okay, gonna move on. I say that we're in this together because we are. ACT is very complicated. There's a lot to learn, very confusing, a lot of deadlines to remember. So if you are confused, concerned, or just have a question, never hesitate to call me or send me an email. With that, all of those difficulties with a secure test is we added COVID to the mix. So that's adding some stress to our year, and as you are so well aware of, but as far as the ACT is also. So I wanted to make sure that I included some of the things that are not normally part of our assessment year in regards to the ACT. So one of those things is who tests when. Since our third year cohort did not test in the spring of 2020, we will be testing them in the fall, and we'll talk some more about test dates and things like that. So that's an anomaly. And then we're also going to be testing this year's third year cohort, the cohort of 2022 in the spring, and we'll have resources and information about that as well. There are tons of resources at the ACT Nebraska webpage. I'm going to have a link to that and show you a little bit more about that later. It's a great place to start if you have no content whatsoever, no experience with the ACT. It's a great place to start. You will have lots of questions. Everyone does. I have some experienced DACs on here that are confident enough to ask me questions, and usually I can answer them. So don't hesitate to call me or email me and ask those questions away. Everyone at Statewide Assessment Office at the NDE really wants to support you. I can't stress that enough. Even though I'm not an NDE employee, I feel part of the team, and so proud to be a part of this specific team who goes beyond the normal to make sure that you guys have everything you need. Okay, moving on. So we're going to talk about fall test dates first. If I go too fast, somebody can just, hey, Iris, can you just slow down a little bit? I have a tendency to talk fast. These are the 2020 fall test dates that we will be providing for those students who did not get to test in the spring. This is considered an optional test, is not an accountability test, but we really encourage every student who can test to test. So the initial test date, so normally they're called initial, makeup, and emergency test dates. You do have a choice. You can choose between September 22nd. This is a paper pencil test only this fall. And then, or you can choose October 6th this fall. And then you can do any makeup. So like, let me use this as an example. September 22nd, if you choose that date, you can do makeup tests on October 6th or October 20th. If you choose October 6th as your main date of testing, you can do makeup tests on the emergency test date of October 20th. I hope that makes sense. So in the spring, we will be back to both paper, pencil, and online test availability. It will be mandatory. There will be accountability with that. Paper and pencil, the first, you'll have 2 test windows to choose from. You can test on the March 23rd test date, and so there's accommodation windows here and online test windows here. I'm not gonna spend all our time talking about that. And then there is April 6th, 2021 that you can choose from. Now, want to make note that that is the Tuesday after Easter, and you may decide that that's not the best thing for you. You still have time to make those decisions. We're gonna talk about that a little bit down the road. But this is for your information so that you can schedule now what you want to do. And oops, I'm going to go back here. And this is test window 3. This is for makeup only. Did I miss a slide? Sorry, guys. I'm going to talk about who you're going to get some information from. You're going to get emails, most likely from state testing or accommodations. You might get them from me. You'll also get your DAC emails from NDE. Oops, sorry. There's some information here on who to contact. Please don't hesitate to email me or call me. The phone number is coming to the house, so for the most part, I'm able to answer it. If you don't get an answer, it's always good to hit me an email and say, hey, can you give me a call? I'm always glad to do that. There's customer support information here, accommodations on those questions that I'm not able to answer for you. I want to talk about the Nebraska webpage. This is a great place to get some information. I would encourage you and your test coordinators to bookmark this page. It says at the top to register, sign in. That is strictly for to register for the ACT test. So you don't have to sign in on this page. You just need to scroll down and look through this. Let me show you. Here's the video that explains how to utilize this page. Great information, just an overview. So if it will give you information so you can click on the ACT test. Now that's going to refer to the spring test that we normally take. Then there's another link here for the fall test. That's going to give you all that information that you need right now. Okay, there's the pre-ACT and online prep. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but those are links to those resources. Great information there. This is what the page looks like for the fall test. It has the important dates. It has all those test dates that you can choose from. It has access, quick links to what you need access to, which is Pearson Access Next, and the TAA system, which is accommodations. We'll talk more about that. There's also a schedule of events on this page. That's really important. I downloaded, printed out, posted all over your walls. It's helpful to have those deadlines in front of you. This is kind of what that looks like. So it talks about the initial test date, the makeup test date. The emergency window is going to talk about when you're going to have materials due, when you're going to have things done in PA Next. Okay, ACT accommodations. So accommodations are available for students with IEPs or 504 plans and or EL supports. So I have students who have both IEPs and EL supports that they need accommodations for. Those things are requested for the ACT test on the Test Accessibility and Accommodation System, or we like to acronym TAA. So we can apply for those for fall testing right now. The deadline for that is August 14th. Spring testing, that's not been determined yet. I want to note that if your student had accommodations applied for in the spring, those accommodations are still valid. Those last for 3 years. What you need to do though is go in and request a new test date, and you have to do that for each individual student with an accommodation. If you need any assistance with that, on how to do that, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I have a PDF on the best way to make that happen, and that comes from accommodations, so it's really good information to note. When we get done with fall testing and you know that you have students in this third-year cohort that will need accommodations, as soon as that opens up here in the fall, my recommendation is to get it done before the end of this first semester, if you can. I know you got lots of other things going on, and that may not be, the priority on your list, but the sooner you can get that done, the sooner you get that information back. A lot of people wait until February or March to apply for accommodations, and their students don't always get that because the system is so overwhelmed and they just can't get it all done. That's that close to test date. So if you know that you might have an accommodation show up in February, I get that. You get new IEPs or a new student with an IEP, understand. But if you can get the majority of them done before the end of the semester, highly recommend that. When accommodations analysts are looking at the information that you provide for them, they are looking at what happens in the classroom. So they'll look at the IEP, they'll look at your 504 plans, and they'll say, okay, does this actually happen in the classroom? So I'm going to encourage you to also provide a teacher survey, and I provided a link for that. It's a form that teachers fill out for the student on what actually happens in the classroom. Does the student have a reader? Does the student do audio, or do they do Zoom on computer screens? Do they need to type out their writing prompt? Those kind of things. If you fill out that information, it's just one more piece of information that the analysts are looking for and can make a better judgment for your student, and I encourage that. For EL students, you want to provide a letter with the school on a piece of paper, on a PDF, however, a Word doc, with the school's letterhead and all the sports that are normally provided in the classroom. And you may include other materials if you feel that you or the staff feel that this gives a better picture of what the student needs. If you need to change a test coordinator in the TAA system, let me know and I will send you the information on how to do that. Okay. The most important system you're going to need to know about is Pearson Access Next. This is kind of it's the hub of where you're going to let ACT know what you're doing. The most important things right now for fall testing is doing managed participation. So we're going to go into the PA Next system. That's what I call it all the time, Pearson Access Next, because that's a mouthful, right? So let's call it PA Next. And you can go into that system once you have login information. If you don't have that, let me know. But once you go in there, you're going to do a managed participation. That tells me what test date you're going to use. So you're going to use September 22nd or October 6th, and how soon you're going to want your materials. It's going to be a quick turnaround, so my suggestion is as early as you possibly can. So one of the dates is September 7th, and I know that's Labor Day, and your school may be closed, so make that consideration. You do not want PA Next to deliver your materials. No, not PA Next, sorry, FedEx to deliver your materials on a day that you're not there, right? So just a consideration on that. When the schedule of events is available now on the ACT Nebraska website, and the schedule of events for spring will happen later on. I think that's probably going to happen in middle to late October. That'll be provided. Always, print it, highlight it, whatever you need to do so you can keep track of what the dates are, deadlines are for those kind of things. So the managed participation on when you tell ACT when you're going to test, that deadline is August 21st. That's fast approaching. It's also going to be the time, deadline for reviewing your students list. So Maggie Sis and her amazingness has downloaded the students for us, and they should be appearing tomorrow or Thursday in the PA Next system. And so we want you just to review that list. There isn't going to be a button that says done. You're just going to check that list. If you have students that you know of that have enrolled over this summer, or you know that, or the list is wrong in any way, please contact me and I'll give you some information on how to correct that. That deadline is August 21st. What happens after August 21st is you can still add students who've enrolled. You just won't get a lovely barcode label that has all their information on it. So that have to be filled out manually. And we have until September 11th to load students into PA Next. So if you have anybody who enrolls that should test in that 2021 cohort, then you can add them to the PA Next system until September 11th. We don't have any reports that you can get on PA Next, usually can, but since we didn't test, we don't have any reports. If you need previous year's reports and you don't have access to those, please contact me and I'll tell you how to obtain those from ACT. And like I said, if you do not have access to PA Next, you did not get an email from ACT saying you have a Pearson Access Next, please log in and do your password. You didn't get an email like that, it might be in your junk file, so check that also. But let me know if you did not, okay? Thanks. All right. This is what Pearson Access looks like, the PA Next sign-in page. You click the little sign in, and then it pulls up like this. See, then you get to put your username, which will be on that email that you get from ACT, and then you create a password, you log in. It's going to ask you to say, yes, I agree with all of these things that ACT is, information that ACT is providing, and I will keep that confidential, you know, and all that good stuff. This is what the home page looks like. Managed participation will be under setup. And if you need information on how to do that, I can provide that as well. This is what the homepage to the accommodations looks like. So you would go to TAA. This is also where you can order materials for pre-ACT if you so choose, or your district has chosen that. Okay, we'll move on. Online testing, not available for the fall. We normally do have it, but it was not available this fall for this makeup test. We can use that with standard students or accommodated students. You can use it as a makeup option. Some districts use it only online testing. It's up to you. And you can do half and half. You can do whatever you choose to do. There's some manuals and some technical information that you'll want to read on that ACT Nebraska website. Something called proctor caching, which is getting your computer, your system ready and your main computer for the online testing ready. It's not mandatory, but strongly recommended. Goes way smoother if you've done your proctor caching and done the mock-up administration and browser lockdown. Those are essential to a really excellent online testing experience. And I want the best for your students in that experience because it is important to them. So with online testing, if you want to do students with accommodations, you need to request that when you submit your application for accommodations. This is what it will look like to go to the online testing site. You can use this even if you're not testing online. If you see below the sign in, it says test audio and practice tests. That's a great way to do a practice test on the, you don't have to sign in, you don't have to tell them who you are or anything. It's just a practice test to see how the system works. It's a great opportunity for students to see if they are interested and give them another opportunity to practice the ACT. ACT online prep and pre-ACT are options for your district. District superintendents were provided the survey and they could choose between one of the options that NDE will provide for them. If you don't know what your district chose, please contact me. Now, I did send out an email last Thursday confirming what your district has chosen. If you did not get that email, please let me know. I would like to know by this Friday what your district chooses so that we can make sure that that information is correct in the ACT system. Your options are ACT Online Prep, which is given to the third year cohort student, and they can have that available to them. It's an online, it's practice, it's games, it's flashcards, it's a couple of practice tests. It has the writing element that is scored by AI. Really good information, lots of fun practice stuff. And they have that available to them for 365 days from their initial login. So you may send that email to them saying, hey, you've got ACT Online Prep, but if they don't log in for a couple of weeks or a month, it's from the day they actually log in themselves that they have that 365 days. So they get to utilize it for a whole year. It's great if the student uses it. And then option 2 is pre-ACT test. Each district could choose from a fall test window for their third year cohort, which is usually juniors, second year cohort, usually sophomores, or a spring test that is only available for the second year cohort. And if you don't know what your school option is or you have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to ask. So this, oh, sorry, missed the date here. This is going to be available. Oh, no, it is right. Sorry, I'm thinking 2021 already. Mid-October of this year, if you need additional licenses, you need to let me know, and then I submit that request to ACT. Once again, the access is for 365 days. Okay, I need to slow down. Sorry, guys. There's some new changes available and 3,000 practice questions. So like, hopefully those students take advantage of that. The test window for fall for pre-ACT is September 21st to October 30th. And There's going to be an email coming out with a schedule of events, probably in the next week or so, on how to order, when to order, and what the deadlines to return those materials are coming. It's coming like late August, early September, I believe. So,
Iris.
yes.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in there and just
Yep.
as a reminder about pre-ACT and ACT online prep, AOP, you get one or the other of those. You don't get both of those. So you're going to, and I can't stress that enough, right? Because I don't want you to think you're going to do both. You're either going to do pre-ACT or you're going to do AOP, depending on what your district selected. So for some of you, this doesn't matter, and for some of the other ones, the AOP doesn't matter. You can just ignore that part of it, okay? So it's either one of those. I just thought I'd reinforce that. I know you said it, but I can't. That's easy to get confused on.
Absolutely, it is very confusing, and this year has added to the confusion. But we did confirm that the spring test window for the pre-ACT, so if your choice is to do your second year cohort, mostly sophomores, that you can test within that March 15th to April 30th, 2021 window. So what we did with those windows is try and make them available the same time you'll be testing the ACT, so that if you wanted to do, I know I heard from a district even yesterday that said, hey, we're going to test the ACT in the morning in the fall because it's just the multiple choice. And then in the afternoon, we're going to do pre-ACT. So it's a testing day, but they haven't lost more than one day to instruction for testing. So I thought that was really a smart, clever idea. And so we wanted that availability to you to, if you wanted to do the pre-ACT with the other students at the same time that you're testing the ACT. So both of those windows correlate to what we test with the ACT. So if you need assistance on ordering the pre-ACT, or you're not getting your materials, or any of those kind of things, or you have simple questions like that, or if you want to order the pre-ACT for, I don't know, your freshman or a different cohort or a different time, please contact pre-ACT at that phone number or the email address. And I'm not sure that I have much more information than that, but hopefully I can help you if you do, or I can direct you to who can, okay? I went really fast, I apologize. Is there anybody who has questions?
Iris, we've answered a lot of the questions.
Okay.
Could you talk to us a little bit about the August 21st date? On one of your slides, it talks about Pearson Access. And it says the deadline is August 21st for fall managed participation. Could you actually talk what that really means? Like, can they not add a student after that, or is that the one that you can get the pre-labels for?
Right. I'm sorry. I apologize if I went too fast over that. So,
no, that's okay. I think it's just complicated. Just explain it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So August 21st is the deadline to do managed participation, so that materials are delivered to you in that time. I don't know if you realize, so the August 21st is that deadline. Then they're shipping and sending materials to you by September 7th. 6th, 7th, no, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, I think, are those dates that you can choose from. And so that's a really quick turnaround. August 21st is the last day you can get barcode labels that are printed with all of the student information, and you just stick it on the answer folder. After that, you can, if it's after that, you can still get barcode labels. You can still add students. But what the managed participation does is tell us what date you're testing for, so you get the correct test document on the specific date that you ask for delivery. Is that clear?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And so really what you're telling, August 21st, you're telling us when you're going to test and when you want the materials. And then it also is the date that you'll get any students that are in the system at that date, you'll get pre-labels for. if you get a new student that comes into your district, you can still test them, but you have to do some of that by hand instead of
Yes.
but begin the pre-label. So
Yeah,
that's
you'll have
how
to, you'll
that
have
works
to,
there. So you could technically get a student the day before you
No.
test.
no, no, September 11th is the last day you could add
Okay.
students.
Thank you. Gotcha.
That's the day you can order material. That's the last day you can order
You
materials.
order materials. Gotcha. So, and there's another question says there was an August 14th date. What was the August 14th date?
That is for accommodations. So if you
Okay.
have, you need to move your test date, you need to request a move for a test date for your accommodations that have already been approved. Or you have a new student with an IEP, you need to apply for that before August 14th.
Okay. And then there's another question that I think I'll answer. It says, what is the plan for 21 cohort? So the students that are going to test this fall, those would be our seniors, right? If there happens to be another building closure before the fall ACT date, I don't know what the plan is, right? So what I'll tell you is if that happens, then we'll try our best to figure out if we can offer something else. At some point, we may be out of options though, because we're running out of them really quickly at this point in time. But that has been our goal all along, is to try to give those students a chance to do that. But I can't, if you're closed this fall on those dates, I'm not sure what we're going to be able to do. But we'll work with ACT to see if there is another option. Absolutely, we'll try. And then there's another question that says, if I heard you correctly, we can choose to give our freshman class the pre-ACT this fall. So
If your district wants to purchase it.
Correct. If your district wants to purchase it, we will pay. If you've chosen pre-ACT, you can either give it to your juniors or your sophomores, basically. You can test other students, but you would have to pay for that yourself. Other questions? You can come off mute and ask, Iris, or you can type them in. Either way.
Hi, Iris. Can I ask you a question? This is Melanie.
Always, Melanie, always.
And I actually put it in the chat so you have it, but I did it privately, and it's not because I didn't want it shared, but I also don't want to put one more thing on people that are new, and it's in regard to the ACT Success site, and that counselors are asking me, they're concerned that the reports are available only there. We won't get paper ones, and they're concerned that we don't have a code, it goes to the soup, etc. So do you have any on that? Otherwise, just say, I'll talk to you later.
So we call it online reporting. So yeah, that is something that what ACT was determined that the superintendents were probably the most likely person to give that information, the main person. It's kind of like the DAC. We give that information to DACs, and then we expect you to send that out and share that information. So the superintendent should be able to provide the counselors with access codes to that site. If not, if there's some issue somehow, let me know. We'll work it out.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
the superintendent should have gotten those passwords last spring. If they didn't, if they didn't, then we can help you figure that out again for that P. And we're going to send more information out. Since we didn't have testing, we didn't get into it a whole lot. But that reporting site is going to be what's commonly used going forward in the future. So it's important that we get you access to that. So if you don't have access, reach out to Iris and we'll figure out how to get you access. If we need to have that resent to the superintendent or whatever, if they missed it last year, if it went to the spam folder or whatever the case may be, because we were in the COVID badness and we didn't bring a lot of attention to it because we didn't think you wanted to deal with a whole lot more, to tell you the truth.
I appreciate knowing that. And actually, Jeremy, we changed our email. So my address is different. Like I couldn't get the Zoom and Iris had to fix mine so I could have access. So, and if it came last spring, it's gone.
Okay. So we can go, we can just follow back up with Iris and we'll get that to you.
Thank you.
And Melanie, if you could send me your new addresses, that would be great.
Oh, yes. Who is this?
Stacy, sorry about that.
Stacy Weber.
Oh, yeah. Stacy. Okay, I will do so. And no worries.
Okay, any other ACT questions that we can answer for you right now?
Yes, Iris, this is Lisa Pack. I'm new. I'm a new DAC, so it's a little overwhelming going through here, but I know our
Absolutely.
district does the pre-ACT, and just because of the COVID madness and in reading this, is there an attempt to try to get the ones that should have taken it last spring?
Lisa, where are you at?
In Crofton.
Crofton. Okay. So if your students were supposed to have taken the pre-ACT in the spring, we are providing that in the fall for them. And you should have gotten some information, but since you're new, you probably didn't. So why don't I connect with you and we'll talk through that, okay?
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, we are providing that opportunity for just the students that missed it last spring, right? So if your district was supposed to test with pre-ACT and was not able to do so, we tried to connect with those districts individually as to not throw more confusion out into the ether, because there's a lot of that going on right now. And so yeah, definitely connect with us and we can help you figure that out. If you were supposed to test, for instance, sophomores at the end of last year in the spring, they didn't test, and you want to do those in the fall and as they're juniors now, you definitely can do that. That is available.
Excuse me, this is Corey Knight from Gearing. I have that same concern, and I too am a new DAC, so I could really use some assistance.
Absolutely, Corey. We got it. You got it. I'll put you down on my list. We'll work it out. Okay. Really great to see your face. I love seeing faces so that I can connect that and think of that when I talk to you on the phone and stuff. So great.
Perfect.
I'm right there with
And-
them. This is Kelly Gibson from Ainsworth. New, not sure what to do. So
Okay.
I
Absolutely.
did just want to mention that both Crofton and Gehring did respond to the survey, so they are on the yes list.
Okay. Good.
Perfect, thank you.
Good to know. Thank you.
Let's do this, Iris. Why don't we go back through that list again of people that maybe missed that again and send those out again, and make those contacts again with people, because we did that. So what we did is we brought them all we brought DACs together. I don't even remember when it was, June, I think, to see if people were interested in doing that pre-ACT still. And so we got that information then. But we'll reach out because we know the people that are supposed to do it or should have the ability to do it. Not everybody wanted to, and that's fine. But we'll reach out to everybody. Okay.
Right. And thank you for reaching out and saying, hey, I just want to make sure that everything's set up for the fall. Did you get all my information? I want to make sure that everybody connects on that level. And if you don't know that information, I'd rather take the time and talk you through all of that, make sure you have everything that you need for fall and for spring, than for you to miss on opportunity. So
Yeah.
don't hesitate to ask.
This year is going to be really difficult because of this fall testing. It's because usually ACT does not come up this quickly, right? And you have all year long to kind of prep for it. Because that we're trying to make this up and this opportunity, it does change things quite a bit for us. And so, yeah, reaching out is always a good idea if you have questions at all. And like Iris said, none of us care. You can reach out to us every day of the week, and we'll keep responding as best we can, because we'd rather have you ask questions and save you time than have you running around looking for the answers and make a mistake and then it not happen, right? And so absolutely always reach out to us.
And don't feel like you've called me too many times or emailed me too many times. I know I've heard that so many times. Hey, Craig. Craig Taylor in Nebraska City is got a lot on his plate, and we've talked quite a few times, and hopefully, hopefully I'm answering your questions. If not,
okay,
let me know. Like if you're not getting what I'm saying, or if you're not getting all the information you need, let me know so that we don't miss anybody.
Yeah. So we have several other people that want you to reach out to them in the chat too, Iris. So get those down. Yeah, it is like, Craig, you're right. It is like learning a new language. You'd think that educators would all speak the same language all the way across. Assessment is another whole language, and And to be completely honest, even ACT is a little bit different language. It's like a different dialect of assessment, right? It really is. There's really, I don't know that we could ever prepare somebody for the DAC role before before they do it, because they just don't. You just don't do the same work in a lot of areas. But you should know you're not alone. There's 244 DACs all over the state. There's also groups that get together on a regular basis and have conversations. If you've never been a part of NSCAS, which is the Nebraska Curriculum Instruction and Assessment group, that's a good group to belong to, because they share a lot of information as well. If you need to know more about them, let us know, because basically that group was created because there was a lot of people like you doing jobs like this and needed help and needed additional resources. So we're always glad to translate for you and to help you out, because it is, sometimes we forget that we talk this language and that we have to actually convert it back to other education speak for people. So and don't be embarrassed by asking about what something means, because that's not a big deal either. So okay, anything else for Iris right now? If not, we're going to go on to ELPA 21, which is kind of another language yet. Okay.
I will check, Dan.
Okay. Iris is going to go off and she's going to start working on all of this now as we go through ELPA 21 stuff. So thank you.
All right.
Yes, I can, Mark. Send me those dates, and I'll take a look at them and let you know what's going on. Thank you. Okay, Allison, whenever you're ready, you can share what you got and start going.
Sounds great. Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Olson. I'm joined here today with my colleague who is new to the department, Ann Hubble, and we're going to share a little bit of information about ELPA 21. Very broad information. There's really not a lot that you'll need to do now, and I understand that many new DACs are a little overwhelmed this time of year, and so we're here to help. But I just want to tell you a little bit about ELPA 21 and let you know what it is and help you determine how it applies for your district. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Okay, are we good? Can you guys see the ELPA 21
Yes.
slide? Awesome. Okay,
Yep, we can.
Let's go right ahead then. So first of all, it is an assessment that measures the progress of English language acquisition for English learners. ELPA 21 was developed from the Nebraska ELP standards, which are also aligned to the college and career ready standards. We have a couple of obligations in teaching students English. First of all, and rather obviously, is English language acquisition. But in addition to that, we also need to ensure that those English learners can access grade level content. And so the standards are rigorous, and the assessment, which is aligned to the standards, is also rigorous. There are 4 language domains that are assessed in both the screener and the summative: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. For the upcoming school year, the ELPA 21 summative window will be administered between February 8th and March 19th. It's a 6-week window. We've had that length of a window for several years in Nebraska, and districts do a fantastic job of getting their English learners tested during that window. So all K-12 students who are identified as English learners are expected and required to take the ELPA 21 summative assessment. And I want to just digress really quickly. And you may be wondering, how do I know if I have English learners? Great question. I will tell you that the number of districts in Nebraska that has anywhere from 1 to 10 English learners increases every year. So we make no assumptions where our English learners are. Part of your district's registration process needs to include a document that's called a home language survey. And that document ask questions about, I'm sorry, my camera wasn't on, I'm here. That document asks questions about what language the student first spoke, what language is spoken in the home, and there are 3 questions that are required. So we've got a link in Rule 15, which is on our English Learners website. It's in my contact information. And again, if you have any questions about the identification process in your district, reach out and we'll walk you through that. So the vendor that we contract to administer the ELPA 21 is Cambium Assessment. They were previously known as AIR. They were purchased last year. And so the processes are really all the same. So if you maybe had some familiarity with the ELPA 21, it's just a new name for the vendor. Nothing else has really changed. There is what we call a Nebraska portal, and I've got a link on the slide. It's also on our website. Everything connected to the ELPA 21 administration is on that portal. There's user manuals, there's directions, there's training videos, everything you need. And then in addition to that, Ann Hubble and I are both here to help you. As I said, that resources section is just full of, I like that it's sort of a one-stop shop. Anything you need, regardless of whatever device and system you use in your district, the secure browser that's needed, that can be downloaded from there. There's test directions. Test directions are provided in multiple languages, and that's all available on the site as well. This is just an overview of what the portal homepage looks like. When you go to log in, most likely you're going to log in as a test administrator, and everything that you need will be found from there. The test coordinator, there's not much difference between the test administrator and the test coordinator. If you are new to the portal, I really encourage you to sign up for email updates, and in the upper right of the window, there's a spot you can enter your email address. When new information is posted, you'll be notified. From there, you can access the test administrator resources. There are practice tests. The system that runs the test itself is referred to as TIDE. It stands for Test Info Distribution System. That's where we enter students. That's where you'll enter users. The operational test administration is there. You'll use that whether you're administering a screener or the summative. And there is a feature that's not used very often. It's referred to as the data entry interface. We have very few students in Nebraska who take the ELPA 21 on paper pencil. There's a Braille version, there's a large print. Once in a while, we may have students in a facility that doesn't allow internet access, and so those students test paper pencil. In those instances, a test administrator does have to take the student information and enter it into the online system. And your scores are found in the reporting system. And there's some really cool features there. There've been some nice upgrades over the last year or so. So once you're into the portal, these are the options that I just walked through. I'm gonna mention, I pulled this off last week. TIDE is now available. It was down for about a week for upgrades that happens every year. I would say you're going to spend a lot of your time in the TIDE system at the start of the school year. If you need to check last year's scores, they're found in reporting. And if you need to administer a screener, you would find it in the operational test administration.
Allison, it's probably important to note that most ELPA 21 testing did occur last year before schools closed down. We think we only had one school that wasn't able to get all their testing done. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And so really, in terms of getting your results and seeing how your English learners did, the vast number of districts across Nebraska, everything is the same as it was in the past. You can go in and you can get those individual student reports. The accountability piece was waived for last year, but there's still really good information on the student report. So you want to take a look at it and see how your students tested. So when the Nebraska Department of Education is notified of new DACs, I go in and I add you as a district level user in the TIDE system. If you have, so from that, it should trigger an email to you with information about how to log in. But if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you. If you're a district level user, you have the option to edit other district level, building level users for your district. And so the fall is a really good time of year for you to log into Tide, make sure that your name is correct, and see who's listed in your district. You may want to, if there are people who have left, you may want to delete them. You may want to add some people. Again, if you have questions, I can help you with that. But we set up the new DAC, and from there, your district users is really up to you. There is an upload that occurs in early January, and that is used to generate testing records in preparation for summative testing. And so throughout the fall months, we typically will be doing the screener administration, and basically those records are set aside. The students that you have marked in your student information system, which is then uploaded to Advisor, we upload from there in early January for testing. We will have some students who move into a district after that upload occurs. When that happens, they have to be manually entered into the Tide system. We try to make the upload as close to the testing window as we can, and it does take 2 or 3 weeks to get everything done, and so early January is about the latest that we can do that. In Tide is where you would enter any accommodations that students need. If you had to create appeals, maybe we need to invalidate a test because the student started off taking the wrong test, things like that. All of that is managed through Tide. The reporting system is used to access the assessment data. There's a really nice dashboard I'm going to show you in a minute that allows you to drill down. You can drill down by grade level, building level, rosters, individual students. And there also is a comparison feature that will allow you to compare a school's performance against the district performance and the district performance against the state. So here's just a picture. This happens to be a demo district, so I don't want anybody to be concerned looking at the amount of red on this screen and think that we've got somebody not doing very well. I hope that your district shows up more yellow and green. Just a dashboard. This is showing me in this district we had 3 students took the 3rd grade screener. There were 2 students who took the 4th grade summative. If I were live, this is just a screenshot, but I could filter down. If I only wanted to look at summative results, I would click on a filter to do that. If I only want to look at a grade level, I could choose a certain test group, pick out schools. And so there's a lot of information here. And I would encourage you, as you get time, to go ahead and look at your district scores from last spring. It's really going to give you a nice summary of where your students, for most of our district, that's where they were about the time that schools suspended for the year. And so we had some really good information on where our students were at that point in time. When we take the summative ELPA 21 in the spring, those results are available pretty quickly. They're always available by the 1st week of May. And that allows us to make some planning decisions for next year. I'm going to mention, and I give lots of reminders throughout the year, your students who tested proficient will be redesignated so that they're no longer English learners. We ask that districts wait until after the June 30th date to do that. There's an upload that happens on June 30th, and the reason that we want those students still counted is because your numbers and your funding are based on that June 30th upload. So along with your reporting system, you can drill down into individual score reports. That will tell you whether a student is emerging, progressing, or proficient. It will break down the 4 language domains, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and show the level of student that's on there. And any combination of 4s and 5s is how we get to proficient. Along with the ELPA 21 summative, which all Nebraska students who are identified as English learners are required to take, we offer the ELPA 21 dynamic screener. It is provided without cost to Nebraska school districts, and it meets the requirements in Rule 15 for determining EL eligibility. So the use of the ELPA 21 screener is optional. If your district doesn't use the ELPA 21 screener, you do have to have a valid and reliable screener in place. There are a couple others that are out there. They are fine, and that's no problem. As a DAC, it may fall to you to make a decision, and I wanted you to be aware the ELPA 21 dynamic screener is available. It's provided without cost to you. It uses the same platform as the summative, so there are some advantages to using it. Your teachers and your students will gain some familiarity with the testing system and the platform. And all of the resources and manual are also available on the CAI portal. There are just a couple of differences between the screener and the summative. Within the screener, the first section of the screener contains a practice section. The test administrator is allowed to help the student as much as needed on that portion of the screener. All 4 domains are integrated into the screener. They're not separate. So students may get one question that asks them a speaking question. The next one might be reading. So they're all integrated into one fairly brief assessment. It's semi-adaptive. The test administrator does have to make a decision point to determine whether or not students can continue on. And when that happens, the test administrator uses a very simple rubric to score the first few speaking questions. There's only 3 points. It's very easy to score, and that's available in the test directions as well. If you use the ELPA 21 dynamic screener, you'll get those individual results. Our vendor has committed within 7 days. Practical reality, most of what I see is usually about 4 days. Students at the secondary level, grades 6 through 12, you get those results within 48 hours. And we know that those results are sometimes really important for making placement decisions. So they prioritize those. Just a really quick comparison of the summative. There are practice tests available. Those can be used at any point in time, and we really encourage districts to provide multiple opportunities for practice for their English learners. It's not a one and done. They should be practicing throughout the year. There are 4 separate domain tests. So when we talk about giving the ELPA 21 summative, each student actually takes 4 separate tests. They take one for each of the language domains. It is not adaptive, so that's something to keep in mind. If you're seating students next to one another, they will see the same questions that are coming up if they're taking the same grade level test. With the summative, all scoring is done off-site by the vendor, and it takes, as I mentioned, just a few weeks to get them. We get our results in early May. I want to mention really quickly, I'm going to go back to the screener, just to mention, the Nebraska Department of Education does provide access to that ELPA 21 dynamic screener for all Nebraska districts, and there's no cost to the district. There is a cost to the Department of Ed every time a student is assessed. And it's important just to remember that screener is not designed to use it to be a progress monitoring tool. It's not appropriate for that. It's not precise enough for that. And so if you have English learners who have been out of school for a few months, as everybody does, we do need to do some progress monitoring when they get back in the classroom, but the screener is not the tool to do that. There are some great tools within our website, some achievement level descriptors, some rubrics that can be used, and we'll be happy to work with you in how to use them. But please keep in mind, the screener is not to be used as a progress monitor. It's just not going to give you the results that you would seek. It's kind of a yes or no. Either the student is an English learner or they're not. And so you would not get any more information than you got after their first screening. If we have any additional closures, I want to repeat the advice that we were able to give districts last spring. If you are providing any type of instruction, whether that's in person, hybrid, or online, you are required to continue to identify English learners and provide services to those students. If you have students who aren't physically present in the building, it is allowable on a temporary basis to make provisional determinations based on the home language survey. Sometimes we can get school records that will show us the student was identified as an English learner in a previous district and never exited. Those determinations are considered preliminary, and once schools do reopen, those students do have to be administered a screener assessment. So it is something that I know many of our districts are really grappling with. How do we give the screener when we don't have students in our building? ELPA 21 is working on a remote option of the screener. Hopefully it will be available within a few weeks. It's not going to be available in August to start the school year, but just know they're working on it. And until then, there is an option to make a provisional determination. We're going to do the best we can to meet the needs of our English learners. And then when we have the opportunity to bring the students in, we can give them the in-person screener that they would have to have and make any adjustments to the records that we might need to do. I wanted just to provide the information for Cambium. Their help desk is available by phone, email, or chat. Our Title III website has a link to all of the ELPA information. Here's my contact information and also my colleague Ann Hubble. It's probably best at this point in time to reach out via email if you need us. We're more than happy to schedule a phone call. Just know that we are working remotely. And so if you call our office number, you can leave a message that will get to us, but email might be the best way. So that's all the information I have. I'm happy to take any questions either through the chat or if you want to just unmute yourself and ask them.
Allison, we have a couple of questions in the chat for you. The first question is, can we give the screener tests at any time during the year? And are there restrictions to using it?
Okay, great question. You may give the screener test at any time during the school year because students move in anytime during the school year. And so I have to think for a minute because it's been a while. Even during the summative window, that screener is available because yes, when a student moves in and the home language survey indicates that they may potentially be an English learner, the next step is to give that screener. So the screener is available. The only exception was there's a brief period in the summer where it's down. I think of it as a retooling. Basically, they're updating it for the upcoming school year. That screener opened up today. So it will be available from now through at least the middle of June. We did extend it into July this year to try to accommodate districts who were providing remote screenings. So yes, the screener is available at any time. And the only restriction on the ELPA 21 dynamic screener, it really can only be used once per student. As I mentioned, it's not a progress monitoring tool. It's a great screening assessment. It will indicate whether or not the student qualifies as an English learner, but that's really its purpose and it's limited to that. But otherwise, there's no restrictions on a district. If a district has 500 potential English learners and they need to screen them all, they may screen them all. There's no limit on it.
And so here's a follow-up question. How did they access the screener?
Through the portal. So if you go into the portal, I'm going to back up and show you where it would be here in the operational test administration. So, and you can see the lock on it indicates that this is a secure portion. So you will need your login to do that. Test administrators can do this, test coordinators can do this. It's really up to the district assessment coordinator to determine who else in your district needs access to this. And so you think about which buildings do you have English learners in, who's going to be administering assessments. Sometimes it's really helpful to have your EL teacher go ahead and give the screening assessment. That gives them some familiarity with the student. It gives them a baseline of where the students are at, and experienced EL teachers really do a good job of determining where students are at even while they're taking the screener.
And so then another follow-up question, if a student moves in during the ELPA 21 test window, they are screened,
Yep.
are they required to test?
Yeah, I love that question. Yes, there's nothing in the federal or state law that says we have to test every student except if they move into the window late. Now, here's what I'll tell you as a practical point. It's a 6-week window. It's very difficult for me to set a hard and fast deadline. I will tell you, by the time we get to about week 5 of that window, I really encourage DACs or test administrators to reach out to me if that situation occurs in your district for a couple of different reasons. I mentioned earlier that at the elementary level, it may take up to 7 days to get the screener assessment. So then we start looking at the calendar and we say, number one, do we have enough time to give the screener, get the results, and if the student qualifies, turn around and give all 4 domains of the summative assessment? That may not be very practical. I don't want to put students through unnecessary testing. I do have to follow the guidance of the law, as do you. So there are some instances when we get to the end of the window where if we just can't get it all done in the allowable time, one of the questions I will ask districts frequently, we're bumping up against spring break or Easter break. Are you even in session during all of these days that we would need to get this done? I have found the vast majority of Nebraska educators will bend over backwards to get the testing done if there's a reasonable chance to do it. And so the answer is yes. If a student moves in during the summative window, we do have an obligation to test them. Sometimes they're moving in from another Nebraska district. If they're moving from another ELPA 21 state, and there are 8 of them, and they're already identified, we don't have to screen that student. So we just saved a step. And so those questions are really best addressed on an individual basis, but please do know there's a little bit of flexibility at the end of the window, and it really just depends on a lot of individual circumstances. Great question.
So another follow-up, if a student has results from another district, are they able to access those results without contacting the previous school, or do they need to contact the previous school to get those results?
Another great question. I would encourage you to contact the previous school. You're probably contacting them for records anyway. Within the portal, you just know as a district user, you can only access your own district's results. If you have any difficulty getting results from another district, another Nebraska district, you can always reach out to me or Ann. We will just ask you for the student's SSID. That's their state ID number that is common across all districts. With that, we can do some searching and we can find the student results. But most likely you're looking for team records and school records from the other school anyway, so I would reach out to them. But as we all know, there's lots of variability in what districts, the personnel, who's in the office right now and all that kind of thing. So if you need those results, we can get them for you based on the SSID.
So here's another question. If I didn't receive TIDE login email, would that be because we don't have any EL students? Or should they all have received an TIDE login regardless? From Crofton.
Yeah, Crofton, I don't believe has any current ELs. And so you may not, my hesitation was that there are just a handful of Nebraska districts that don't currently have any ELs. And so it's really not something that impacts them. There certainly would be nothing wrong with having access to it, but it's not something that you would use. And so when I receive the DAC notification, I'll go in and see, are there, first of all, any current district level users, and are there any students identified as English learners for your district? And if there were, then I've added you. If there were no previous users added at the district level, then I probably didn't, but I'm more than happy to if you'd like to. Sometimes DACs move from other districts. You might be familiar with English learners. Again, I really would encourage everyone to at least make sure that that home language survey is a part of your district registration process. That's the only way we can say for sure that you don't have any English learners.
Yep. So there's another question that just came in that I'll let you look at that have not received any emails. Then one other question, and then we'll need to move on. I am new to my district, and I have not used the ELPA 21 screener in the past, but it appears that we have EL students. What advice do you have to properly implement for students that are in the secondary level?
Okay. What I would really encourage, Michelle, if you would just reach out to me, I'd like to follow up, you know, I think Zoom, we've all made Zoom work and it works really well for us. At an individual district level, if you'd like to talk about your EL program, if you're contemplating changes, we are here to support you. I heard Iris really reiterate that message about ACT. It's true of all of us. And so reach out to me. What I really would like to do would just be to set up a phone call or a Zoom meeting with you just to have a conversation about where you're at and what your questions are. I'm pretty sure that we can answer them. I just don't know exactly what your unique situation is. And so it's what I'll tell you about the ELPA 21 screener. If you've never administered it before, it would take about 10 minutes to learn how to use it. Most students get screened in about 30 minutes. It's pretty quick. It's pretty straightforward and pretty easy. And once you do it once, you could do it as many times as you wanted to, and it would be pretty easy. And let's see, Gearing, you had a comment earlier. I'll double check and I can, yeah, if you have any questions about how to get that, send me an email and I will make sure that you are in the TIDE system and we'll get an email triggered to you to get set up.
Very good. Thank you, Allison. And I don't know if you can stay on and answer any other questions if they're coming through chat.
Sure.
Okay. We're going to move to Rhonda True. Rhonda's going to talk about NAEP, and then she's just going to keep on rolling into science and skills with some additional information there. And then we'll have some time for additional questions and answers at the end. So Rhonda, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
Okay, can you guys see the screen?
Sure can. You want to put in presentation mode because you're in, unless you don't want to be in presentation mode.
There we go. All right.
There you go.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about NAEP. I am the interim NAEP coordinator currently. My full-time gig is that I am the skills grant coordinator, and I'll talk about that next. But in the meantime, I'm working on NAEP as well. And NAEP stands for National Assessment of Educational Progress. These are the questions that I'm going to answer here during this presentation. Just what is it? I was a former principal, so I always want to know, like, at what level am I going to get results, and are results reported? Do schools have to participate? And then why are some schools chosen more than others? We get that question frequently at the assessment office. And then how can you support NAEP? So this is what it is. I said already, it's National Assessment of Educational Progress, and it is the largest nationally representative and continuing assessment of what students know and can do in various subject areas. And so all 50 states, including Puerto Rico, give the NAEP assessment, and I will get into the details on what grades and how often. So the nation's report card is the resource. The NAEP assessment, the results go into this nation's report card, and really policymakers use this, elected officials as well, as they're looking at data or policies that will impact the entire United States or different states. They might do some comparisons. So this is how the NAEP data, which is fed into this nation's report card, is utilized. And different states also utilize it a little differently. Some states do have NAEP data as a part of their accountability system. Here in Nebraska, we do not. So just so that you understand that the NAEP scores results are not reported at the school level, and they're not reported at the student level. and they are not tied to accountability. They're literally just state results. So Nebraska results that get fed into this nation's report card. And from that report card, you can pull up subgroup data. There's some contextual data. Students do surveys that we can get some information from, as well as aggregate data. So and I'll show you where you can get that data in a minute. So is participation required? The United States Department of Ed requires all states who do receive that Title I funding to participate in NAEP, and they participate in reading and math every 2 years, and it's on the odd year at grades 4 and 8. So this year, being spring of 2021, will be a NAEP year. We call it a state year because all states are giving the NAEP test this year, and I'll give you some updates on that. So it would be for reading and math for grades 4 and 8. And so all districts receiving funding, even if it's a school not receiving funding, but the district receives title funding, they do actually sign their assurance there, the funding, saying that they will participate in NAEP.
Rhonda?
Yeah.
Rhonda, I just want to follow up real quick, just to make sure everybody realizes this. So even though the state is currently going to do NAEP, that doesn't mean all schools do NAEP. It's a representative sample, right?
Yes, it is a sample of schools. Yeah, who participates, yes.
Yeah, so you'll be contacted if you are going to participate. So if you don't hear from Rhonda, you're lucky, count your blessings. And you don't have to worry about it. If you get selected, congratulations, you'll hear from Rhonda, and you need to help take care of that, right? And so at this point in time, they're still reviewing whether to do this test because of COVID and everything. We still, as of today, they're still planning on it. So if that changes, we'll let everybody know. But in general on NAEP, unless you hear from us, you don't have to actually worry about testing.
Right. So this slide right here just says, just kind of what Jeremy was reiterating, that at this point in time, math and reading grades 4 and 8 is what sampled schools would be taking, and I would be notifying you in early fall. They have extended the window. This is the NAEP assessment window. They've extended it by 2 weeks currently, just thinking due to results of COVID. Now, that being said, some determinations on is this truly going to happen are going to be made the end of this month. But as of right now, we're moving forward as it is happening. So for sampled schools. And that being said, they're on non-state years, so on the even years, usually there'll be international assessments that are given. And there's a sample of schools that we asked to participate. These are optional on those even years. And I just put some up of the different types of international studies types of assessments that you could be asked to participate in. But again, these on even years are optional. And you can say, no, thank you. My role is just to facilitate the process and be the communicator and a resource for districts to make this the best experience possible for the schools that are in the sample. And I want to show you why some schools are chosen more than others, because I've heard districts say that. I was from a district that said that. And first off, NAEP is a stratified random sampling. They use stratified random sampling, which means the sample every year that's selected for Nebraska must match our demographics. So if we have 6% EL students in our state, then 6% of EL students across our state must be sampled. If we, so all of these characteristics you see on this picture, whatever percent demographics that is for Nebraska, we have to do a sampling that equals that percent. So percent in a relevant way is what I mean. So that's why some districts who possibly have higher EL populations might get their sample, they might get sampled more frequently, or our native schools, because we do need representation in our sample each year, each NAEP year, that matches our sampling in our state, that is equivalent to that, or in proportion to that, is what I want to say. So this is why some districts will be sampled more than others. One I want to make clear is when you get on the NAEP website, or when you get state results and you're looking at them for NAEP, do not compare the NSCAS achievement levels to NAEP achievement levels, because they aren't synonymous. So in other words, developing doesn't mean basic in NAEP. On track doesn't mean proficient in NAEP. You don't want to compare them at all. To be honest, in NAEP, proficient, advanced are considered kind of aspirational levels. So a lot of times we think of basic as more in NAEP being more in line with proficiency. So that's why you don't want to go across and say, that's odd. You know, in Nebraska, we have so many, you know, this subgroup is more in the basic area. Why is our NSCAS saying that subgroup is mostly on track? So we really just don't want to compare them. They're just like apples and oranges. And then how can you support NAEP? Basically, I know it's another assessment, so just try to stay positive as can be. I guess the good thing about NAEP is that it is legislative mandated that all states give this test. But if you are selected to be in the sample, you do not, the way it's been done in the past, you do not administer it. They send in people to administer it. That's another whole thing that we're talking about as far as with COVID. But your teachers don't need to give it. So they do bring in their own staff to administer it, and their own devices. So it's all done on devices. Just remind principals and school coordinators to complete the tasks required. If you're selected, if you're a sampled school, I'll be reaching out, NAEP will be reaching out to get someone set up to get into my NAEP, and they do a lot of tasks in there, so we know about which students and so forth. So that will be a part of that process. And then during even years, just remember NAEP is optional, and you can communicate to schools that their participation is not required. And there is a NAEP website. I've just updated it with the extension of the window, and if for some reason it's postponed or canceled, I will be reaching out, and I will be putting it on the website. And here's where you get to the nation's report card. Also, there's a link directly to it, so you could go there if you wanted to look at Nebraska, 4th grade, 8th grade reading and math, how we're doing, compare us to other states. To be honest, we're in the top 10 for both reading and math, top 10 states in the nation for both those subject areas in both 4th and 8th grade. And there's my contact information if you have further questions about NAEP. I'm also working from home, but my phone does go to my email, so I could get your message if you call. Were there any questions, Jeremy? Any other questions?
So we have one from Melanie. It says, I had 12th grade noted. Was that a pilot or some kind in the past for NAEP? I think they've canceled everything else. Is that right? Or
yeah.
I'll just let you answer it. I'm not gonna, I should.
Okay.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, so last school year, we did the high school transcript study, and it was a study and it was voluntary, and we did have some Nebraska schools at the beginning of last year participate in that. But that is over and done with, and like I said, there aren't any voluntary studies, any other international tests. We were slated to do US history this year, but all of that's been postponed. So long-term trend studies, they've all been postponed for this year. The only ones still possibly going to happen our reading and math for grades 4 and 8.
Yep.
Thank you for the, and this is Melanie, thank you for the clarification. And I have an assessment calendar that I put together every year. So if you don't mind, can you just, I thought that international were canceled. You're saying they're optional. And I had PISA, P-I-S-A, and Pearls slotted to occur this year, 2021. It's optional, so that doesn't concern me, but I'm confused about the odd even because the one test I had noted that the PISA is every 3 years, the TIMS is every 4, and the Pearls is every 5. Is that no longer true?
Yes, so sometimes they will do another study in the state Napier. You are correct, because I think either Pearls or PISA was scheduled for this school in 2021.
Yep.
So they did cancel it.
Okay, it is canceled.
Yeah, but usually on the even years is when they'll do more studies, more different types of studies, even other subject areas, science, even some of the other more international ones. But they try not to overload the international ones with the state years.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
And the other question you answered, people should hear, it's going to be early fall. I think we're supposed to find out more information later this month.
Yes.
And as soon as we have information, we will be notifying people though. And we'll, Rhonda usually has to send letters out for that when a district has been identified as needing to participate in NAEP.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
like I said, it's going to be the end of August before they make that final decision about NAEP. So it will be probably early fall before I reach out to you. I would say even after Labor Day, which I apologize for that, but they're trying to figure out if this can happen and what that might look and sound like, or how it might look and sound different. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started on science and skills. Go ahead, Rhonda.
All right, now I'm going to get into my passion area. So, like I said, I am the Enhanced Assessment Grant Specialist for the Skills Grant, and I've done a lot of work on science as well because the grant, the Skills Grant, which I'll tell you about that a little bit, is a science assessment grant. So that's the connections there. So I do want to just start with science. And many of you may know this. If you attended my NDE session, the session Trudy Clark and I did, and Audrey Webb, a lot of this is going to be a repeat, so you can kind of zone out probably. But first of all, I just want you to know what are the overall claims for the science assessment system. And really it is, we just want kids to be scientifically literate so that they can be civic-minded decision makers. So we want our kids to be critical consumers of information, and we want our kids to see science not in silos, but as interconnected, not like the domains, the science domains, earth science, space science, life science. They're interconnected. When we're trying to solve a problem or explain a phenomena or make sense of something, often we use multiple domains of science. We use ELA and math as well to help us make sense of those things. So those are our claims. Those are things that we want all kids to be able to do after learning and working with our standards in science, and then showing us the evidence of this on the NSCAS. I love to put this slide up because we want to make sure we're maintaining consistency, not only in our assessment systems, whether it be summative, formative, or interim, but really also as we think about instruction within our classrooms. And so we really want it to be phenomena or problem focused. I keep using the word sense making, but that's what we do in the world. We make sense of things, so we want to engage kids in that. We want kids to be able to reason with evidence. And this NSCAS Science does test grade 5 and 8. And then of course 11 is the ACT, but the grades 5 and 8 NSCAS test measures the grade 3D targets. So 5th grade NSCAS Science test is aligned to the 5th grade standards. That's what it's showing us evidence of. And then we always want kids to demonstrate science understanding by doing science, not by reading it just in a textbook, but by doing science. And I think the biggest shift we can say from our standards as we've adopted those, and I'll show you the timeline in a moment. I was a former science teacher, so I know I can say this as well, is we really are shifting, and when I talk to teachers, I say we're shifting from our instruction, our assessment, everything from kids learning about to figuring out. So if that's, that's the little saying I use a lot. I'm like, okay, is your instruction really helping kids move to figuring out? They have to bring content knowledge with that, but are they, with these 3-dimensional standards, are they using those 3 dimensions to figure out? I think you saw this earlier, but this is the NSCAS Science Assessment Development Timeline. Our standards were adopted back in 2017. We hope to be operational in 2022. There was a lot of visioning and task force work done and pilot tests that was done. And this past spring, as Jeremy said, we were to do field tests. That didn't happen due to COVID. So knowing that this summer, we were to do future field test development, we really repurposed our work this summer, and we worked on formative classroom tasks. We brought, and I'm going to talk about that, we brought teachers in to write tasks that teachers could use in their classrooms formatively at grades 5 and 8. And it would measure the breadth of the standards, but really look at the indicator level so to give teachers evidence about their students at the indicator level. And then, like I said, we will do the field test this spring in 2021, this upcoming spring, and then go operational in 2022. Well, this is old information, but if you weren't a DAC last year, you might not have known this. What is the NSCAS science test? What's that field test going to look like? Well, of course, it's grades 5 and 8. Census testing, which means it's for all students. All students will participate. There's the administration window, it's same window as NSCAS ELA and math. There will be some exemptions that we will detail later, possibilities that could be exemptions that you may need to let Maggie Sis know about. Further details will come out about that close to the administration window, similar to what we did last year with this field test. Now, what does it look like? Because that's the first thing I always want to know. Well, it's task-based. Each task will focus on a phenomenon or a problem that kids will take. So when I say multiple prompts, I mean multiple questions, for usually 6 to 8 within a task. And all of these prompts will be at least 2-dimensional, have a DCI, which is the content information, and it may ask them to use a practice or look through the lens of a cross-cutting concept. There won't be any 1-dimensional questions because our standards are 3-dimensional. And we'll really try to reflect the proportion of the 3-dimensional elements in the SEPs, the DCIs, and CCCs that are in our standards. And we really want to allow for any combination of 3-dimensional elements for kids to make sense of things within our tasks. How many tasks will kids take on this it will be digital. There'll usually be about 6 tasks per form, and the prompts will be around 40, 42, give or take some. That's questions, about 42 questions. And the average time, most kids should complete it in about 75 minutes. That's estimate based on our pilot information, but again, there'll be, I'm sure, a large amount of variability. We'll communicate additional information within the NSCAS scheduling guidelines. This test is not adaptive. Like ELA and math is adaptive, science is not. We don't have a bank yet big enough for that, especially with the 3 dimensions. So currently it is not adaptive, but kids will only be able to go forward on this test. They won't be able to go back. The reason for that is sometimes in the sense making, we'll give them some information as they move forward. so that they can keep working through the problem or the phenomenon. Because if we didn't, they would just keep missing all of the prompts. They would get them all wrong. And so we may give them some information to keep them moving through the task. All right, I talked about this summer. We did 1 week in June and 1 week in July where we brought teachers in from across the state. And instead of writing summative tasks, they wrote classroom formative tasks. And NDE, NWA, and EdCount, and EdCount is the leading vendor on the skills grant. We're all participating in this, and EdCount really took the lead in it. We had 28 participants from districts, ESUs, and NWA in June, and 26, as you can see, for the July week. We should come away with about 24 formative tasks for grades 5 and grades 8. And we are going to house these in a repository, which we're going to get that up and out to you, and so you can share that with all your science teachers and principals in your buildings. Hopefully the repository will come about in October. And not only will they house the tasks, but they will house the design tools that were used to make the task. So teachers could pick up the design tool for a task and say, oh, I want to design my own. Well, people have already done the work. They've unwrapped or unpacked the standard for me. They've written different types of work products I could ask for my kids. So they could literally make their own task if they want. And I want to show you some of these just templates that will be in the repository. So we used a principal design approach, the teachers did, to develop these tasks, which really was somewhat new for teachers. They'd unpacked and they'd unwrapped before, but with a principal design process, you think of all the features, all the elements, all the design aspects before you actually design a task. And being honest, as a teacher, I used to just sit down and be like, okay, I'm ready to write that assessment. Instead of thinking about all the elements, all the evidence I need to collect before I write of what I'm targeting, how kids going to show me this. It really leads to more valid results and more reliable results if we use this type of process. So teachers did this, they unwrapped, they developed a task specification tool to determine those elements, that menu of design elements, and then they actually created tasks and rubrics. And then our teachers are amazing. They were like, we need to write exemplar responses for other teachers across the state as well. So not only in this repository, they'll have the task, they'll have a rubric for how to score it. And our teachers this summer wrote exemplar responses so teachers would know this is what I should be looking for. This is the unwrapping tool. Sometimes you hear it called unpacking. We call it unwrapping. What we worry about with unpacking is sometimes people unpack, but with science, you got to put it back together. So you notice the 3 dimensions are noted here, the SEPs, the DCIs, and the CCCs. We actually unwrap them, but then we put them back together. And so that's why we call it unwrapping instead of unpacking. This is the task specification tool I spoke of earlier. So you can see here that we literally had the teachers think about the indicator they were working on from our standards. Then they had to develop these statements, which were knowledge, skills, and abilities. Like, what am I trying to gather evidence about from my students? What do I want to learn about my students? So they literally had to write these real specific statements. And then the next part was, well, what is a list of how kids will demonstrate their understanding to me? What are those? And then what would that work product look like? And really it is a menu. So that our teachers wrote 3 or 4 different things here. So literally teachers, if they don't like the task that the teachers this summer developed, they could pick up this tool, this template here, and develop their own. We also have several phenomena that we listed, or phenomena listed on this tool. And then we list task features and ways that you could vary or shift the complexity of the task. For example, if you want to give a task to students who have higher cognitive abilities, you could provide them a larger data set. You could give them more data. For students who maybe need a little more support, you could provide a model partially completed. And so when teachers get these tasks that have been developed with these design tools, there'll be a lot of other menu items or other choices teachers could have used to design the task. And teachers who want to could say, hey, I'm going to use this and develop my own. I have a better idea of what I'm thinking about.
Rhonda, we only have 12 minutes left, so I don't know if you want to fast forward a little bit. I know that some of this is covered in the Administrator Day's presentation too, right?
Yep, and this is just an example. I'll go quickly, the example of a task, because they can look back at it. This shows how all the features of the design tool, how they point or how the task came to be. This is just a template of the rubric that the teachers used. And now a little bit about skills, because all the work came from skills. We've been working on this principal design approach as well as these templates. So I did provide the link here to our website. We are the lead state with Montana and Wyoming, EdCount being the main vendor, but there are several other vendors as well. This grant is almost coming to an end, December 6, 2020. We've been leading this since 2017. I'll let you look at this, but this is all the deliverables, free resources on our webpage of all the things that the Skills Grant has created in each of the years. I've talked a lot about the classroom pieces, but we've done large scale as well. Here, I want to just highlight, if you're a district and you're trying to take note of like your assessment system, this would be a great, a great resource, the self-evaluation protocol. It says click here. It literally walks you through how to look at your assessment system, whether it be ELA, math, or science, and provide evidence about what you're trying to gather, what you have in place. And then we have a digital workbook to go with this protocol. So kind of outlining at a high level some assessment literacy modules. If there are people on your team who don't have a very strong assessment literacy background, there are modules to support that work. And then these are the local resources that I just spoke about, like, oh, I want my teachers to be able to start developing some of their own tasks for science. Well, here's a whole set of tools and templates down this last bullet where you can go and teachers could use these templates, as well as there's a whole professional development suite, including all the PowerPoints to lead you through teachers being able to develop science tasks. Here are other science resources on our webpage. You can go to the Science Assessment Transition webpage. We have the NSCAS Science Draft Blueprint is up there now. We have a draft blueprint breakdown, as well as our draft ALDs. So all of those are on the Science Assessment Transition page, and they're linked here. Also on the Science Assessment Transition page are the extended indicators for science. And this summer, educators came in and developed instructional clarification documents that will be there as well soon. And that is all I have. Were there any other questions about science or skills?
Yeah. So thank you, Rhonda. If you have more questions, please come off mute, and we'll open it up to all questions as well if there is. Yeah. So there are some resources, some at a glance type of documents. We'll send those out with this recording. We'll pull those up, Lisa, and we'll send those out to everybody, all the new DACs, or actually all the DACs again, to remind them, along with this recording and the PowerPoints when they're up and ready. So we'll take care of that. Appreciate Rhonda and sharing all those resources. Like we said, it is kind of a new language for many of you. Rhonda kind of got into another dialect there. with the science, because it is a very different test than what we currently do with ELA and math, but it's because those standards are different. Those three-dimensional standards are different, and they need to be assessed differently. In general, I want to thank everybody for being here today and for spending time with us. I know you're super busy doing all the things that you have to do to get ready for school. And I'll just reinforce this one more time. You'll probably get tired of me saying it. If you have questions, please reach out to us. Like I said, that is the one main point that we want you to take from this, is that if you need help, please ask. There is no, a lot of times I'll get somebody on the phone and they'll say, oh, I'm sorry for bothering you, or I know how busy you are. Well, you're busy too. We know how, and it's not a bother. We want to help you. We want to spend time helping you get it right. We much rather have you ask than spend hours looking for it, or ask before you get it wrong, because that could have other implications. So please don't hesitate to reach out to any and all of us if you need help in certain areas. If you don't know who to ask, just send it out there and we'll get you the right person to help you. We appreciate all of you that you do. You're going to learn a lot this year if you've never been a DAC. It's also going to feel overwhelming now, probably, and in the future. But we're here to help you, so you're gonna be fine. There's lots of other things that we have to deal with this year too, and so we know that, and we'll try our best to support you. Anybody else have any other big questions, or any other staff want to jump on and say anything else that we maybe have forgotten or we need to reiterate?
Do you want to mention the SharePoint?
We can, yeah. So we are getting ready to do SharePoint, which is a place where we can share secure documents with districts. You're going to be getting information about that from, what's his name?
There'll be a quick email from Maggie just to introduce it, but Matt Eckred will be sending out the actual invitation to the
Yeah, so Matt Eckhart from NDE will be sending you additional information. So Maggie's going to let you know what's going on. And you only need to use that SharePoint site if we're exchanging secure information, which would have student information and that type of thing in it that we want to make sure remains private. So that's the old way of doing it was kind of cumbersome. We hope this is a better way of doing that and sharing information back and forth if we need to. If it's just a regular email, you can just send that directly to us. Anything else, anyone? Okay, well, we'll stay on. I'll stay on for the next 5 minutes if anybody wants to chat, if you have additional questions. Otherwise, thank you for your time. Thank you for all you do for students, and we appreciate you.